special edition of the Towercast. We have filmmakers in our room from a showcase we showed a week ago. So let's start off around the table with our first guest.
This is like the legit intro.
Yeah, this is what we're going.
Okay.
We're going for picture here.
So my name is Francisco Castañeda. I'm a local filmmaker in El Paso, Texas. I'm also the director of the event.
Nice.
Basically, you want me to talk a little bit about the event also to kind of like introduce what it is?
Sure.
Yeah.
So basically, what we did was part an art exhibit, part a film festival. We asked a bunch of filmmakers to submit their films for the festival, and then we asked a bunch of visual artists to create original pieces inspired by the films.
Sweet.
And so, yeah, the whole idea was just to create a conversation amongst us local filmmakers and hopefully spark something. We got to meet some new filmmakers that we never met before.
And new artists.
New artists as well.
And there's actually one filmmaker that's not here, but
Yeah, we're missing Mark Martinez. He couldn't make it out
to
to
Mark.
so he's out of town today.
But basically, that's me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Francisco.
You know me, if you've seen previous episodes of the Towercast podcast, I'm Carlos de la Torre. Today I'm a writer-director. I get to talk to my peers a little more, fellow directors and writers at the festival. But I did have 3 films screening in the festival and works of art that were amazing that we'll get into the artists right now. But yeah, that's me.
And then
This side of the room.
All right, my name is Jonathan Gonzalez. I am a local filmmaker here from El Paso, Texas as well. I also write, direct, and edit my own stuff, but I also have a lot of help, especially in a lot of other various components of filmmaking. And, you know, that's just something I've always been very proud of, to have such great people around me, you know?
shows. Absolutely.
I'm J.A. Valens, and I'm just honored to be here with you guys. You know,
Yeah, man.
I'm a director of Escape and Unfinished Canvas and Guest Pass, and yeah, just honored to be here.
Oh man, this is going to be a great conversation. Before we move forward with all of the questions that we have for all these amazing filmmakers, I got to introduce the fellow co-host of the podcast.
Yeah.
That's true.
Mr. Michael DeLao, or
This is the
cinematography
main
perspective.
co-host.
Wow.
Can we hear the low?
Main co-host. I am Michael DeLo. You may have seen me on such things as this podcast. And that's it.
Podcast.
Mr. John Eric
Two
Castro,
podcasts.
are giving our fellow acting perspective here.
How you guys doing? We're gonna talk film with great filmmakers today.
By
so
the way, also,
stick around.
we have John Eric Castro as our actor perspective because one of the films at this showcase featured this
Some
lovely
of them.
face.
Two of the 3
I
of my
tried.
films, and then you,
Yeah, oddly enough, 2 of the 3 of your films had him
Yeah.
as an actor, and then 2 of the 3 of your films
Had
had
you as a
me
DP.
as a
Yeah,
DP.
that's right. That's
So,
right.
we
yeah.
tried to CGI my face in the third one,
But it just didn't
Yeah,
work
but it
out. We gotta
But-
give credit to our crew. We have
Crew in the
Mr.
back.
Austin Young, fellow producer, sound mixer, editor of the podcast. He's making sure we're sounding good out there. We have Mr. Michael Head shooting. You see this amazing flow in the white angle.
the famous
This
Michael
is
Head.
Michael
That
Head.
production value
And this
camera.
lighting technique, oh my god.
Last but not least, we
Top
have
tier.
Miguel Morales. He's gripping for us today, doing everything. We gotta give credit. Give credit to your crew, man. Thank
Yeah.
your crew. Thank you, crew member, man.
Also,
They're amazing.
we're not in the podcast studio.
We're not. We gotta give
couldn't
a
fit people.
special. We couldn't fit this
was
many
crazy.
amazing filmmakers.
What was the studio though?
Yeah, don't worry about that.
We gotta thank Fox. She's letting
Fox
us
is
use
here.
her kind of corner at the Amano Artist Group. I think it's called Amano Co-op.
Look it up.
Studio
Google it.
Co-op. And thank you to the Amano Studio Co-op to let us do our podcast here. This is an amazing space, and if you haven't been down here to check out some of the displays and the exhibits, make sure to make your way down here. I'm sure next week we'll be back in studio in our little room there, but
Yeah.
for now, this is
Kinda
pretty
cool.
terrific.
Must need.
Yeah.
So, thank you guys for coming out. I mean, the Filmmaker Showcase was a couple of weekends ago. But yeah, it was a really interesting event as far as seeing all of you guys come together, especially you. I feel like our little corner in... No, get rid of these guys. No, because...
This guy was the wild card, man. He was the.
We never met you.
We never
Jay,
met you.
I mean, we know these guys.
We bumped into everybody, and I think we'd like to think that we bumped into most of the people in the film community. But seeing your stuff, I mean, was really just impressive. That like, I mean,
It was
watching
refreshing.
yeah,
It was refreshing.
Watching it was like, why haven't we seen any of this stuff before? Yeah, I know.
I mean,
We're
it's like you
super
said, we
impressed.
know Mark and we know Jonathan and Francisco. We all
Yeah.
know each other from around the way, and quite frankly, with the exception of maybe our 2 new films, we've probably seen everything else.
Yeah.
Right.
But I hadn't seen. We
Yeah.
hadn't seen your
Yeah,
work
same.
at
You
all.
were-
I mean, we didn't.
And I have to ask. There's no way those 2 were your first films.
3.
There's 3, yeah.
3, yeah, they were.
That's
Really?
crazy.
Wow.
Guest Pass was my first film. You know, and really, like I said, that was just an excuse for us to do a cool action scene.
It works.
And
This
then,
was the garage?
yeah,
Oh, man, yeah.
And
that was
it's just
fun.
you know, I
That was really
met
fun.
my friends and we were like, hey, you know what? We all love film. Let's do what we like, a fight scene. And that's,
How did the choreograph go?
my friend Adrian Avila, shout out. That guy's a kung fu junkie.
Hats
Bruce
off. I was like,
Lee.
there's no way, no hats.
And you know what? It like for all the action sequences, because I think you saw our films, which were either dialogue heavy or they were very kind of like they were silent, cinematic, but they were very slow. But you know, that's kind of like the
Slow
style I
burns,
think that we kind of see. You know, that's the styles that we see, and we admire anybody who's able to do like those action sequences. But we really don't see a lot of that in El Paso, and
We don't see a lot of those good fights.
good.
Yeah, no,
Good
and it's
choreography.
important to note that I think every filmmaker has their flavor here, like really genuinely. Like Mark, who's not present, you got to give him credit for his experimental approach to cinema. I mean, he really does explore that very well, and again, he has that going for him. And not that we have to be pigeonholed to anything, by the way, nobody should,
But I
but
think-
we all have our sense of style. Francisco's very much the visual filmmaker, and anything that comes to visuals, he's really terrific at, and explored a different realm of that in Top Hat, which we'll talk about. But I tend to go for more of the musical foundation stuff and
Go for it. Go for it.
love
Say it,
stories.
Say it, man.
Love
Martin
stories.
Scorsese.
You expected me to say it,
La La
no.
Land.
But anything
Say it,
that's
man.
anything that's character pieces, I'm drawn to, and I've been exploring different formats of that
Yeah.
with the different films. Jonathan has very much explored different styles within the films that you showed, and
It goes against the controversial
I'd
topic.
say that
I'd say so, yeah.
Jonathan's kind of storytelling is more along the lines of things that they're heavy topics and kind of like what's the human way of telling them and expressing these stories, and it's just really unique.
Yeah.
I mean,
And-
this event.
And what was cool about yours, Jay, is that was your first, cool, and then you
That's
went
no
into
way.
this really. I mean,
Artsy.
I'd say my favorite piece was the painter one.
Blank Canvas?
The blank canvas. I was really drawn to that, and that was completely different from you know.
I think that was just me getting personal. You know?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned that you came from painting.
I came from painting. You know,
Okay.
I think the whole reason for me painting was I always needed to tell a story. You know, but it came to the point where either it was painting or just like photography.
Yeah.
It wasn't moving. You know, I couldn't tell my story. I couldn't tell a story with moving images, which is what film is, right?
Like Lynch.
So
Yeah.
maybe we go in that direction, right? Let's talk about you mentioned that Guest Pass was just your excuse to make films with your friends, which is we've had plenty of those, trust me. But
Before you ask the
yeah.
question, can I ask one just to get started going around?
Sure.
I have a question for you guys, and I like how this one starts, just to get off, into a good topic.
Back up. Your focus is here. Okay.
Oh, my focus. I'm gonna start off this question, and you guys fill in the blank. I'm a filmmaker because,
That's good.
just to get the audience to know a little bit about you.
The easy one. I'm a filmmaker because I love telling stories. And my first love was actually music. Then I'm also a painter. I love all kinds of mediums, and slowly I kind of started realizing that to me, the ultimate medium for me, it's cinema. So that's why I'm a filmmaker.
What type of music?
Music? Well, I play piano, cello, and guitar, so like it's all genres, and it's very varied.
That's one thing I'm always jealous of people that got into music. Feels like it gives you a rhythm and it helps with
So he can attest to that.
Yeah, I'm a filmmaker because I love cinema, and I know it's such a blanket statement, but especially in recent years, I mean, I've been getting so much into the idea of why we do what we do, and who came before us, and standing on the shoulders of giants. I say that all the time, and it fascinates me that we're allowed to contribute to this medium. It's an honor to contribute to cinema, and that's why I'm a filmmaker. But I started out the same way. I was a musician and started playing guitar, piano, drums, bass, and wrote music and wrote songs and toured with a band for a little while and stuff like that. So got that side of things. And music production, I mean, we recorded our first singles and stuff like that in a legitimate studio, which taught me a lot about the process of building and founding, right? So to transition into cinema was good to be like, okay, these are all the components and this is what it takes to tell this story in this format. Nice. Can I do it? Can I contribute to cinema? Do I have anything to say? And I think the more we make films, we discover we have something to say. We have a little bit of that motivation. Like, okay, I've said this enough. What about this? I want to explore this emotion or this feeling or this character. And that's why I'm a filmmaker.
Can I just say, can I just say something before the ball goes away? The reason why I started getting into music and painting and everything else is because to me, that seemed doable. That seemed like if you were a great man, you could become a really good musician, a really good painter.
Yeah.
But movies to me were made by gods. Like when I was a little kid, I was like, a god made Star Wars. Or like, yeah.
It just
seemed-
existed on the earth for us to.
Yeah, and I remember I'll actually get so angry as a little kid watching the behind the scenes stuff. Because to me it was like breaking the magic of like, no, I don't want to know that a guy.
And to me it was the opposite. To me it fascinated me.
Well,
to
now
be
it
like-
fascinates me now.
But as a
Whereas
kid,
I-
as a kid, it was, I guess, because I was one of those kids that like taking things apart and putting them together. I mean, I studied
Understanding
mechanics
how
for
to
a long
make
time
it.
too, and it fascinated me that men did this.
Right,
It fascinated me that it brought
And
me down.
I think this event kind of gave us that, like, this was art behind the scenes because it was talking to the people who kind of made that. But just to kind of start shifting it down, Jonathan, so follow the pattern. You're a filmmaker because, and also what instrument are you great at?
Second answer or second question first. None.
All right, perfect. Okay, and
Wears hats pretty well. That's about as far.
all right,
I'm good at
play the
making-
drums.
I'm good at beatboxing. If that's
Oh, there we go.
please don't.
Please give us 5 seconds and we'll cut it off.
Give us your answer while beatboxing.
Well,
That would be
no, it's.
Okay.
Where are you a filmmaker?
But
Jonathan?
yeah,
Time
I'm a
step.
filmmaker because.
That's kind of a hard one because I mean, there's so many reasons to it. I mean, I'm a filmmaker because I love film, like Carlos was saying, but also because it's what I love to do. I love telling stories. I think we all come from that same mold where, you know, it fulfills us. It gives us, you know, a part of our lives. Well, for me, it's also my entire life, you know, because, you know, and I'm not trying to get super deep about it, but
No,
yeah,
we
that's
want
just how
you to.
much we love film because,
Yeah.
you know, because we live through these amazing worlds when we see them as kids and, you know, we see them presented to us in this, you know, magical way and we think, man, I love how awesome that is. And you don't know how practical it is to do it until you actually try it.
Yeah, and
it's a
to
mystery behind it.
piggyback off that, I think it's important to note that, like, when Jonathan says it's our entire lives. I mean, we get off doing this, and then we're in prep for the next film, and if we're not in prep for the next film, we're watching film and hope to inspire something. I mean,
And if we're not doing that, we're at a day job making money to make more films.
make more films.
Yeah,
so it does encapsulate.
And I was gonna say the sacrifices that we have to make, like time, money,
the biggest
souls. Like, are you sure you want to get into this?
No, have you seen those films? He's in it.
He's in it.
I know.
He's in the dark side now. That's it.
Everybody who's here has established themselves
No.
as like really doing excellent work.
And that's why I love the diversity of the films that are shown because you can
Yeah.
tell like, hey, your movie's super different than mine,
Yeah.
but I can tell you love it.
We can
I
appreciate
tell
that, yeah.
that you're coming from the right
I just came
space.
from laughing and now I'm crying. What's going on?
I liked your answer, Jonathan.
Jay, why are you filming?
Big man on
Yeah,
campus.
there's many reasons, but I think
Yeah,
it
yeah.
comes down to I feel like right now it's the only way I could express myself, you know. And when I can't do that, you go dark places.
Did you reach it? I mean, this probably is a question for you too, or musicians as well, and painters, especially you two.
Yeah.
Did you reach a ceiling? You feel on expression through that medium? Did you guys feel like you reached a ceiling, and that's why I'm going? I feel like you got into painting a little more after filmmaking, right? But you came from painting, so did you guys reach a ceiling?
A ceiling like
Like an expressive, creative ceiling.
Did
and
you
like,
feel like painting
No, I-
found its limit? Like I don't know if it helps, but
Yeah, it did. Like I said, it's just there's only so much I got out of making a painting. You know, it was more satisfaction. But at the end of the day, it's just how I can express a story, and film just did it. It fit that better.
Yeah.
You know, it felt that better. I got I don't know, some type of the satisfaction I got was very limited from a painting.
Sure,
you
sure.
know?
And,
I'm the
and
same
I
way.
think what's really cool is that for somebody like you, somebody like Francisco, myself, John, like we all came from different mediums, and film legitimately is the combination of all these mediums.
Yeah.
It's a combination of music and sound and art and film, and visuals, cameras, photography. I mean, it's the culmination of everything. And what better way? I mean, for somebody, we all started shooting, editing, direct our own things, and then eventually you meet these awesome collaborators that you're like, my film's gonna be so much better if I I present this thing to somebody who knows how to do it and loves it more than anything. But I find that very interesting that we come from other things, but ultimately film is everything. It really is everything under that.
It's always been there. I think so. Like we all grew up watching these movies. You know, I had this VHS player in my room. I think I shouldn't have been watching the movies I was watching.
That's not this podcast, man.
No.
Peel off the sticker.
No.
That's across the street, you know.
But that's where the creativity starts.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Either just at the end of the day, we're here, and we should be applauding that, you know?
What I think's interesting is that, I mean, I kind of came from a similar route as you in the sense that, like, I first got into painting and I just really fell in love with that medium. And then from that, I also fell in love with photography and just capturing the world. And it's interesting because I didn't break from the visual side of storytelling. I kind of stuck with that, and now, like, I mean, cinematography is exactly what I want to be doing, and I don't want to break away from that. I mean, I had a conversation with Carlos a while back, and he was like, okay, but if you weren't doing camera, like, what would you really want to be doing? And it was almost like he was trying to break me to say, like, are you going to say, I want to direct, I want to write, I want to tell this story, but I don't want to be behind the camera. I want to actually, like, you know, let people kind of help me to create that vision. And with you, it was the directing side that, you know, you did everything, but I mean, it seems like the directing side's kind of where now you're going into. Now it's not staying behind the camera. It's like, no, it's writing these stories and finding that expression. Do you think you are now finding a passion for directing? Like that's going to be the next kind of big creative, I guess, challenge for yourself, is improving and becoming the best director you can
And
be?
before you answer, I think we all went in that route in the sense that, like, you very much started in DPing, and that was very, I mean, I know you started in photography and stuff like that, but in film, you were very much excited about being a director of photography. I think, Jonathan, you were more excited about writing, the writing aspect, and excited you a little more. And then once we got into directing, I know when I did, I kind of fell into that head first. I directed, you know, my first thing and loved it and fell in love with it right away.
Yeah.
There wasn't another thing I wanted to explore. I did everything. I DP'd, I sound, I everything, but I fell in love with directing and writing, and in that order, by the way. And I think I mean, it's important to note for me that, like, we all came in like, well, I'm going to try this out, I'm going to try that out, and maybe I'm going to do all of it. But I strongly encourage people, like, do the one that you love the most. Do the one, and we can do anything, you know, but do the one that you love the most. Like I told you before we were rolling, I encouraged a couple of the guys on this table and behind the camera, like, get a DP. Direct, focus on directing, find the amazing DP. I found mine.
Did you write and
He's
direct
one of
these or
them.
just
Another
write?
one's right there behind the camera. You know?
Right and direct, yeah. And to answer your question, yes, I think directing is where I want to be, because I feel like I have the control I need to tell a story, you know?
Yeah.
Who's got the look?
He's got the hair.
No, but that's where, like, I guess transition to my question is, I don't know if any of you three have, like, wrote something and had somebody else direct. How does
That's a good challenge.
Actually, yes.
tough is
I've
that?
only had that happen.
Because I'm with you
once.
that I want to edit it, because somebody's not going to edit it the way I thought.
Well, the film that you showed at the event was
Precognition.
Precognition. So how did that feel, having the story go to somebody else?
So
Very
I wasn't super attached to that story when I wrote it, so it wasn't one of my babies. Enthusiasm, but also was my baby. So you know, I
You wanted to be directing that one.
Yeah, so that one I was like, no, I have to do that one. But I understood, you know, I trusted Jesse and his passion for the story.
Which came out good.
And yeah, definitely. So initially when I wrote it, and I was telling you guys about this on Saturday, I wrote it in a much more grounded way where I didn't expect a lot of visual effects and things like that. You know, I wanted it to be, you know, just simple camera trickery. You know, cuts to, you know, one side and then like, where's my son? And then he's standing right there, and then cut to them.
Jonathan, can you pitch what Precognition is about for the people that haven't seen it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Precognition, the logline is a soul-searching psychic ends up helping a woman whose son was murdered and come to justice, essentially. And so that's a very rough.
No,
that's perfect.
But,
You don't want to give
yeah,
too much.
but essentially, for that one, I trusted Jesse to tell that story. And at first, he did some things where I was like, I don't know why this is taking so long. Because I remember when we were first pitching it, I kind of had the same idea as you, like, hey, this shouldn't take too long. It's like a 3-day shoot. But when I saw what Jesse was doing, I thought, okay, you know what? I gave him the creative freedom to express the story, and I need to trust him. And I understand that it's not my vision anymore, but I'm very grateful to him because it is, but it's very rewarding too.
While we're
really?
on that topic, I mean, with Precognition we had the pleasure of producing it, and that's Tower, And the guy running the camera right now, Michael, he was the DP for the film, and
I love you, Michael.
and I mean, in terms of visuals and a lot of things in that storytelling front, Jesse and Michael really did something very special in that film. And you know, on the producing front, we were used to shooting on a weekend. All right, we'll just get it done in 3 days, whatever. And Jesse was very much about like, I know I need more time, and we booked this much for these many days. And I was like, okay, well then let's do that. We spread ourselves out a little better, and you wouldn't expect that for a film like this. It's it's 2 locations technically, and relative on paper it sounds easy, but they took their time to really flourish the visuals and some of the storytelling aspects. And I've only ever done that once, I think, where I wrote something, I let Ricky direct it, which was You're in Trouble. It was a comedy, and same as you, I wasn't attached to the story at all. I love those types of stories, but I think it's right to bring the right director for the right project. And as a producer, even that, like when you're producing these films, I served as the executive producer for everything that Tower's done. So like, you have to know when to be like, this isn't for me.
And there's some people who take there's some people who take that where they only want to write.
Yeah,
I feel like you're obviously not done directing, but you're dabbling into more of these stories that you're writing that might go to different directors, and it's interesting because that in itself is its own kind of creative challenge, that creative field where people go into where they feel like that's the best way I'm telling the story. Like I can't direct kind of like the emotion and expressions like other people can. Yeah. But I can tell that story, you know?
Yeah, essentially that's the goal with writing is the ones that I find to be the most personal, that I'm emotionally attached to, that's the ones I want to direct. But, you know, I don't want to limit myself to letting others, you know, direct stories that I write because, you know, that's not fair to them. And I like to see the opportunity to see other people, you know, explore my stories because I'm very fascinated to see the options and the ability for somebody else to bring that story to life just like Jesse did.
Yeah. I mean, you have to at some point. Like, I'm very much in the same boat. I don't want to write... I'm pretty confident that I don't want to write anything that I don't direct moving forward. However, we're very collaborative front and Tower, so like we have a bunch of stuff in development, and I like sitting in those writers' rooms, and I like getting these ideas, and more so like I wrote the pilot for a series that we're going to get ready to shoot hopefully soon, and then I said I'm writing the pilot. Here you go. Pass it on to 2 amazing comedy guys, which is Delao and Ricky. You're going to be taking over and being the showrunners, and that's all I want to do. I wrote the pilot. I'll see you later. I'm moving on to the next thing, and that's kind of how I want to approach storytelling on that front. Like, I told you guys, the only condition I have, I'll direct the pilot. Beyond that, have fun. See you later. I'm on to the next thing.
You're Mike Flanagan it.
And then again. So I'm gonna get your permission here. I'm Scorsese, you know. With like Boardwalk Empire, Vinyl, he directs the pilot and then he's out.
Well, thank you guys for joining us today.
But just in that regard, like directing the pilot and moving on, being kind of that creative voice in the beginning, and then moving on, trusting somebody else with it.
At first, though, were you scared, like, to actually do that?
No, because it wasn't something, kind of like Jonathan said, it wasn't something that I totally wanted to be enveloped in.
Yeah, that's what,
you know, and it's scary to risk that. It's scary to be like, because my philosophy, if you've been on my sets at least, or if I have asked you to be a part of my set, it's that don't tell a story that you're not completely and utterly in love with.
Because you're going to be with it for
because you're going to be with it for a long time. Especially if it's a feature, you're going to be living with it for years. Yeah. And if it's a short, you're going to be living with it for months or through the festival run, which might take years. So like, don't tell a story that you're not completely in love with. But in this case, I'm in love with the concept. I'm in love with something, but I'm not going to bring it just as a director. You know, I'm not the stoner comedy director. That's why I passed that script on. I'm not the office showrunner kind of director. I'll pass that on to somebody like who has a comedic undertone. So it's important to find the right people for that too, by the way. This guy's one of the funniest guys I've ever met in my life. Ricky,
he's nice.
Yeah, Ricky, who, you know, he does our sound and stuff and is writing, directing as well now. Yeah, he has a sensibility for comedy, stand-up comedy. He's my go-to guy to talk to that stuff about. So you find those people, and like, these guys are going to be good at that. I'm going to walk away from this because I won't bring it justice.
I was going to say, there's all these preconceived ideas that you have of what being a director actually means before you get into it. And
which I know it kind of like...
Well, he's
getting ready to direct one of his first things too, so...
I think it's a very childish way of approaching it when you're first starting out, because you think of the tyrant director that has all the answers and it's my movie and you do this and
Yeah, no.
Well, you didn't watch the behind the scenes to anything, so you know.
of course.
It was a tyrant.
So
It was a god. Remember, it was.
Yeah.
it was in God, which
It was-
I
it
then
was
became
the guy who smited people with lightning. That was the
That
director.
was, it was
No,
Zeus.
but when you first started out, and I'm gonna disagree a little bit with your statement of like when I first started, I did not want to be a DP at all.
Oh, okay.
I like visuals, and it's easier for me. I think I'm naturally
sure.
gifted in that specific sense. So when I first started directing, I thought, okay, I have some sort of like an ease at telling a story visually. So like most of my films,
Because
at
you're
the beginning,
confident in that
Yeah, I
realm.
was like, that's something that I can lean on, and I know I'm gonna be decent at.
Yeah.
Moving forward, I realized like, well, no, because my goal is to become the greatest director of all time, whatever that means to me, I need to become a better writer. I need to become a better director. I need to understand how to talk to actors. And the first movies that you make teach you so many lessons that you couldn't learn otherwise.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
read that 100 times, every rewind it. That is so true.
No, and I do think that that's why like we're all impressed with Aliens, because it's like those are your first films. How the fuck do you even do that?
You,
Yeah,
you
I
can't
still don't believe
be
it.
because you can't be
But
afraid. It's interesting they asked me, were you afraid to do it? You can't be afraid to. I think the biggest thing I tell first-time directors, or relatively new directors, is like Rodriguez has this quote where he says, "You have 10 bad films, and the sooner you get those 10 bad ones out, the sooner you're going to become a better filmmaker." And he's obviously oversimplifying the process, but
For sure.
But it's that the sooner you can get these bad quote-unquote things out,
believe that
the sooner you're
100%.
going to become a better filmmaker. So
you-
not being afraid of that is.
Just to finish my point of the preconceived ideas is when you first start out and you have this tyrant in your head, you don't want to let go of any control.
Right.
And so at the beginning, you're like, I'm going to shoot, edit, I'll act if I have to, I'll do everything. Because
It's
you
your
almost,
baby.
you don't want to share your
You
baby
become
with
precious.
anybody.
Because you don't feel like anybody else is going to be able to understand your translation of the
Yeah,
directions.
that's clear.
Nobody
But
gets my
But here's the thing. As you grow as a communicator, you realize like, well, that's your flaw. If
Right.
someone doesn't understand your concept,
Exactly.
that's because you don't know how to communicate it properly. And also, the idea is, if I do a movie on a vacuum by myself, that's a very limited movie.
Yeah.
If I combine my head,
Bo
which
Burnham.
is Bo Burnham is
he's
incredible,
genius,
but here's the thing. If I combine my artistry with someone who also dedicates his entire life on his artistry, like let's say an actor, you're an actor, Eric. So like if I go like, you know what, I'm gonna trust you with my baby, but because I know you're gonna do it justice, that's both of us almost not compromising but collaborating and saying like,
Exactly.
oh, let's make it better then.
You
How
can't.
do we
You
make
can't. I mean, you
Grab
can.
that
You-
mic,
it's not-
dude, and drop it.
It's not like it's not that you can't, but should you limit yourself in such a collaborative art form where you're limiting yourself to this small world when there's this amazing, huge
I'll
world of
say
artists
this.
to collaborate with? You know?
I'll say this. I think we're all at the stage where we're appreciating the people who have like their different roles in
Yeah.
film.
Oh, man.
Because when you start off the indie route, like with your films, acting, directing, kind of doing everything around it, you're doing all these different positions to kind of like satisfy this one goal of your story and make sure it comes out right. But then as time goes on, and you need to dedicate yourself more into, let's say, like directing or writing or so, you start niching yourself into like, that's all I'm doing. That's all I'm going to be focusing on. And I think you all are at the point where it's like, no, I'm going to focus on directing and now start giving that trust out to the people that I find.
Exactly, because I think, speaking for myself, I can half-ass a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think my biggest thing is audio. I know what I know, but I need to know more. And I know
Join
there's
the club.
No directors like doing audio.
Yeah,
You're-
and I
it's
also
all
got
good.
the
Fuck
audio.
it.
I know
Fox
that
is nodding in the background. She knows.
I know that there's people for that job, and I need
That
to
are
start,
pros. That
and
love it, dude. That see it as an art form.
This is why I also asked you if you're scared to kind of like allow yourself to give this part to someone. I think
Exactly.
I'm at that.
I'll be
point.
honest with you though. I'll be honest with you. Just to answer you on my front, I trusted people probably faster than anybody in this room, but because when we started Tower, that was kind of when we started Tower, it was Austin, Eric, and myself, and it was basically I'm directing, Eric's DPing, Austin's editing, and that was the streamline. I had somebody for that process that were good at what they did.
Yeah, Austin was a
so
lifesaver, dude. Like,
so
Austin-
it was easier to trust them, right? But trust me, between
think
us
if I peek
three,
Austin,
we wore a ton of different hats, and that's when we each had to delegate a little better and say, well, we found DPs like Michael and like Dalal, and all right, well maybe they're damn good at it, much
Also-
better than we are.
Also because you wear a lot of hats out of necessity
Right.
when you're an indie filmmaker, but then also you tell yourself that to still be the tyrant. It's almost like you say, like, well, I don't have anybody else to trust. It's
Exactly.
like, you do.
No,
you just
yeah.
don't consider them good enough to do it.
That's part, I think, when it's
So
like
true.
a first time directing, because you really feel like your vision can only be carried out by you. It doesn't matter what facet.
You might have a.
You were gonna-
So going off of that fear, I actually did have that fear with precognition. I'm not trying to downplay Jesse's work or anything like that, but I did have those anxieties that you were talking about because, you know, it still was a script I wrote, and I was still trying to comprehend the idea of somebody else taking the story and being like,
Yeah.
Well,
wait,
comparatively, Jonathan,
Yeah.
your film before precognition was
active contrition.
Act of Contrition, and you directed that and you wrote that. Somebody else produced it as well. But I guess the control that we're giving away is like the roles that we play, right? So you technically, before precognition, you had to delegate a producer role, you had to delegate an audio role, you had to delegate a cinematography role.
So yeah, the way it happened though was I'm used to writing things in a very specific way, or usually I can write it for myself, and that's not really fair to anybody else if I'm going to give it. So I'm being more general with my writing, but at the time there was times where I was like, what do you like? I would ask Jesse about the lighting and stuff like that. I'd be like, what the heck are you doing with this? And so you know, you have those questions, and he was like, oh, it's okay, just trust me. And I was like, okay. And so it's not.
Jesse
to
will do
downplay-
that to you.
Yeah, but it's
Jesse
not
will
to
do that to
downplay his work, because at the same time, you have to have that trust, and that's when I realized I can't be that kind of guy who's gonna say you're ruining my script or you're not following the way I did it, because guess what? It's not my script anymore to give.
Yeah,
But
and at a certain
you-
point in time. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, my bad. It's because everybody's saying it when they're not invested on the script. Whichever one that you love, and you're like, that director's way better than me, though.
Can I just say something, Jonathan? I don't think I could ever do what you did, because
Exactly.
I understand being a writer, and that's, you know, that's who you are. But you're also a director, so you being the writer director while somebody else is directing on set, I don't think I could ever.
Oh
do that.
no, dude! When Ricky was directing the thing I wrote, you saw me on the and if I'm producing on the set,
That's how I-
you don't see me next to the
Yes,
director.
I
You don't see me
can
next to.
something.
I'm on the opposite side of the room, even if I'm just producing.
kicking
In
a
fact,
rock.
Because also you have opinions, right? And you go like, well, when I wrote it,
No.
I pictured, and then
Well,
you can't do it.
well, that's the thing too. I did have those preconceived notions. I think it was like on the first or second day of shooting where I was like, I just gotta shut up. And,
sometimes.
but I was able to have like be close to the crew and everything like that, and still be on set, because at the same time I thought, you know what? I wrote it. It's not my vision, but I still want him to complete his vision.
Right.
And because I mean, at the same time, we all
That's
have our own
admirable.
visions.
That's admirable.
And every single filmmaker, no matter how great their film is, we're always going to say, well, what if this director did it? And you know, no film's going to be 100%
And that's not
different.
to sway you either way,
No,
Jay.
yeah.
By the way,
No,
I mean,
I'm swaying you.
somebody like Francisco, like, is trusting a little more on delegating the other roles that he doesn't necessarily have to be doing. But as a director and as editor, he's probably going to stay to that track. Somebody like Had, like I remember just the conversations we've had about like, hey, maybe let somebody do the first pass of your edit. Somebody like Austin, or trust another editor. And he tried it. He may or may not have liked it. I don't know. We'll see what happens in the next couple films. But for instance, Austin's my Thelma Schoonmaker. Like I'll go to Austin for my edits anytime because we have that shorthand. And I won't be able to pull off in the edit what he does. But you may be able to pull off exactly what you want. You know, so it's not to sway you one way or another. My process is I want to trust the individual who is not just great at it; they're in love with that art form. You know, so they're going to do a much better job than I am. at
There's
that.
also no one way to do it, because I was gonna say, like, building your team is crucial,
Yeah.
and it depends on who you're trusting, right? So for example, like I met my creative partner, who's my DP for everything, very early on in my career.
Luis?
Luis.
Shout out to Luis.
Luis Anchondo, best cinematographer in the world for my
I
money.
mean,
And fit
the
distribution.
best one.
well, he's CP'd
Yes,
for
yes,
me
yes,
too,
yes.
so I can't.
That's why I was like,
Okay.
are you coming from?
Well,
from
for me,
experience?
and I do think it's a matter of fit, because you want somebody who gets it. And
Yeah.
then when I started pitching him my visuals and he understood it, I was like, oh, dude, like I wish I can have many Luises in the different aspects, right?
Yeah.
I slowly started finding the people that take away that tyrant director hat, and they tell you like, well, sure, but if you just focus on this and I do the audio, it will be a better movie.
No,
You'll be
it's,
like, okay,
it's
fine.
good that you bring that up because I primarily worked with Michael Head as my DP and Delao more recently, and they're totally different styles of DPing. But Head will be the more logical one to keep my feet on the ground when I'm over here like, no, let's do this.
He knows.
And Delao will actually go with me there. Like we'll sit and watch different films and say,
Good save.
oh, this is the emotion we want to capture through
Yeah,
A, B, and
I
C.
think-
And those are different. You need the logical
Yeah.
one. And I had these guys co-DP one of the 48s we did, and it was, for me, it was the best thing in the world. For them, I don't know. They were kind of
Well, then you think that
interchangeable.
the fit is super important, because, for example, like,
And it
I-
depends on each project too.
Yeah.
Maybe for something I'm gonna need more logic or something else. I'm gonna do.
Real quick.
I think we all have something.
So that way,
I gotta like
we
get
can-
to your guys' movie.
this is very much going to be a director's panel and kind of like seeing each of your styles. But kind of go around and you already gave a log line of your film, but can
Yeah,
you
let's
kind
get
of
into the meat
can
and
you give a few
bones.
more pitches of like each of your films
Showcase.
just to kind of like see
So start with
what
Guest
style
Pass.
you're coming into?
What is Guest Pass about?
Yeah, Guest Pass.
Give your pitch to the whole world.
Oh man, right. Guest Pass.
In an elevator with Martin Scorsese. Go.
Well, yeah, basically, Guest Pass is the name is you have a friend who essentially has a guest pass to a movie, and he
Right,
brings
right.
other friend who really doesn't enjoy a movie. You know, it's probably you can consider his first time in cinema where he gets dragged literally into the screen. You know, so you have that, and then from there it turns into some 80 nostalgic type thing. They have a fight scene and. Really, it's just the beauty of cinema dragging someone onto the screen. It's bad pitch, but that's
I like
the
that.
idea,
Yeah.
you know?
Okay. And the other film?
Unfinished Canvas. Basically, I wanted to tell a story of all artists. We all go through this creative block, and I really wanted to capture that on screen. Not so much a story, but just that moment where we have so many things coming at us every day, and I don't think a lot of people consider that we want to sit down and write, we want to sit down and paint, we want to sit down and write music, but we can't do that because we have so many obstacles, and
Yeah.
I wanted to tell that how frustrated we can get because we can't express what
And
we
even
need
though
to,
you're already getting so many obstacles out of the way in your personal life,
yeah.
and then as an artist, you get the hurdles you have to jump just to get something on the canvas.
Yeah, and I mean it's a small little little subplot, but he's going through relationship problems. He is. And I don't know. There's just something about trying to finish something when you're trying to deal with this.
Yeah,
You can't
no,
finish
it's-
it unless
If somebody in this room doesn't relate to that, I'd be shocked.
Yeah, and,
Exactly.
Relationship problems?
What's a relationship?
and then
Sorry to everybody.
Escape is essentially. I wanted the way that started was, I wanted to tell a story from within. A fight from within. Usually, I could have easily shown what's going on
Yeah.
with her abuser, but I didn't. I wanted to show that sometimes it's much more difficult. Your tools are there to escape, but to do it, it's a whole different thing. She has a
We
daughter.
were just talking about Squid Games earlier today, right? Would you not?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
It's that same kind of question, right?
'cause-
Like if you have everything available to
Yeah,
you.
I think the first thing is like, would you stay with him? I
Right.
mean, it's like, well, there's more to that.
Sure,
It's not,
there's
you
more
can't-
layers, absolutely.
Yeah. So like, I guess I wanted to tell that story from within.
Yeah.
And I like the point of view of that film, right? Because it's a very subjective, her point of view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting.
Actually, if you guys caught on, it's actually the little girl who's dreaming.
Right.
It's
Right.
a dream
Yeah,
sequence.
yeah.
It's we get to the point where she's
Get me
sleeping.
out.
What she's interpreting out of seeing this.
Yeah, and she wants her mother to
Take
to
care of it.
leave, and it happens, and I think.
But she's even from the perspective of a child, right? It's so naive.
Yeah,
to-
yeah.
That's the point, right? Is everybody here is like, get out of there.
Yeah,
but,
yeah,
if that's the child's perspective, but to her, it's like, well, I love him. I've been with him. I've dealt with whatever the reasons are, the layers are. But it's interesting.
Yeah, and I understand it is a dark topic, and I think once I actually filmed it and finished it, I realized, dang, like, this is something, it's not just a small
I have to ask
That's
you,
when you know
because
that.
you know.
Because you're your
Escape-
biggest critic, and then you tell us, you're like, hey.
Yeah.
Escape was your latest, right?
Escape was my latest.
So
yes.
I'm curious because I openly told you that Unfinished Canvas was very impacting me the most of the three. And what was your favorite? And I know not your favorite film, but your
always
favorite
the last
process.
one, right? It's always the
No,
last
but
one.
your favorite process, like
You know what? I have to say my favorite process was Unfinished Canvas.
Okay.
It had to be. 'cause-
Yeah.
Because it connected to
Connected
that
to-
artist.
Yeah, I think it's always gonna be like my first personal project. I
Sure.
think my favorite scene is like when I had to pan around.
Oh,
Ed,
it's terrific.
that. And
Terrific shot,
I guess
yeah.
the cool thing is I see that I don't like filming my projects, so that's like the worst part because I get nervous, I shake. But I was there with him. We had the music playing the actual song, and my friend, doesn't paint, Aaron Castillo, shout out. He actually really got into it, with the music and everything, and going around him. It was just a good
strokes
thing.
look
same.
pretty
Yeah,
authentic.
and I think it went with the music, the
Yeah,
strokes,
sure, sure, yeah.
So Unfinished Canvas would have to be just us in a garage trying to come up with a story.
So 20 years from now, that's the one you're gonna start with. I started with this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other two don't exist right now. We have a few of those.
Probably not guest pass. I feel like, I love the fight scene in that.
Unless you're talking to like Tarantino or something, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, I love the fight scene we did in that. I love it because I think also I met those two guys, Adrian Avila and Aaron Castillo, and I think that was our way of kind of just bonding,
Sure.
And
That's even better.
us to have to get that one shot.
And you're
fight
still
scene,
making films with them.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I want to. I hope we.
The connection was right there, though, so it has to happen.
I'm gonna say, like, obviously, a couple of the through lines in your work is that it's black and white. Well, Escape has some color, but it's mostly black and white. And also, for the most part, they're silent films, right? You barely have any dialogue in there.
And I was gonna go back to that. Like, you have to consider I'm telling my stories visually. I think just right now, I was telling you earlier that I'm diving into my script writing. I'm getting into that. I'm learning how to do that, and I think once I actually do that, you'll start to see maybe my first 10 films that I have to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's interesting because I think you already have a really solid grasp on the visual storytelling aspects, and I think that's what
Very
we're all
similar to
very
you.
impressed with.
I think we were
This
talking
guy's
about
gonna
this
walk out with
earlier.
his chest
Yeah.
out, man. Just,
Yeah, no, because
Oh man.
I mean, I think I was talking to Carlos saying that when it comes to like an action sequence, I'd be very intimidated to do that because
I wanna do an action
I can acknowledge that's not in my wheelhouse, but I think you were able to find the core of that action sequence,
Yes.
the core of the struggling painter, the core of feeling isolated and wanting to try to escape from that, and how to express it visually, and then. Now it's going to be interesting to see your works moving forward when it comes to dialogue. Like how is that really expressed?
Also because there's already a voice, right? Like, you
Yeah.
can tell.
Yeah, there's already.
It'd be interesting to see that. So I think we're all really excited for that.
Yeah, I want to check your SD cards, dude, because I don't know. These aren't your first three films. There's something else in
Come
there.
over, man. You'll see the rest of my.
I was gonna say because
Watch this. He already has 10 projects. We're
Right.
never gonna
Exactly.
Never gonna hear about it.
Change his name just to
I was gonna say because I also like the painter one the most, but I my favorite shot in everything that you've shown us is actually when they're fighting and you see through the window. And the woman
Yeah.
is there.
Right.
That's such a shot that I don't know. It just gets me every
It's
time.
like, no, we talked about this at the event.
you-
The smash cut or the
with the
with the
cigarette.
straw and the
Straw.
cigarette.
I just noted that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Good
yeah,
elements.
messing with cuts and all that.
Right,
and
yeah, that
just
was
having
fun.
to be
That was
there,
definitely fun.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the next filmmaker, Jonathan.
Big Guns Jonathan over here.
Big question. Favorite director or favorite movie?
Ooh, how did you get your fire started? What did you see?
Right now, I'm stuck on Unbreakable. M. Night Shyamalan. I know,
Interesting.
Unbreakable. I'm
You know
really-
what?
I don't know, man.
What's up, man? Americastro? How you doing?
Yeah. I'm always switching. I was talking to these guys earlier, and Birdman is also an awesome inspiration.
Yeah, I
The
see
first
that in
Michael
Unfinished
Douglas.
Canvas. I see that in Unfinished Canvas. By the way, I've been saying this for quite some time. I still, to this day, and you can say anything about The Revenant, I still think it's Iñárritu's best film.
The Revenant?
Yeah, no, Birdman.
Oh, yeah.
I still think Birdman, to me, I connect the most with it.
This ain't a film.
First 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's also just like I love long takes. I hope
Yeah.
when I start doing more, I
This
can
guy over
start incorporating that more. Because if I can get something in one take for as long as
gotta
possible,
ask.
I love it.
I know why you like it, but it's like the most difficult shot, so why are you gonna...
It's the beauty of it. Like, they're getting stuff in
Exactly.
camera.
I heard my answer.
It's like asking yourself, why do we climb the highest mountain? Why do we?
I know,
It's
I asked
do it
it.
because it's hard.
Immediately
Well,
regret
so
it.
it's
expression
every
time,
good shot is a very difficult shot.
Yeah,
You can put up
that's
something
true.
on a
That's true.
tripod.
But a
If you do it well, it's very
because I'm
difficult.
the actor, I'm an aspiring actor. I know how difficult it is for the actor.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
And I think
That's
we
why we trust
probably
the
come
actors.
from the same school of
We
like,
trust them to do that.
it's
true, I mean, you
beautiful to see something. I'm surrounded by a lot of people that love visual
'Cause
effects.
Birdman
I like getting everything in
introduced me.
camera. I love getting the bulk of things in camera, and even with this last picture we shot, I mean,
Make the
all
scene
of the cuts and stuff like that we wanted to get in camera, and with long takes, I mean, there's no saying. Some of the best long takes we talked about, like Boogie Nights, we talked about Reservoir Dogs, Goodfellas. I mean,
Copacabana.
the Copacabana
But
scene,
I heard that
Goodfellas. That was the first thing we ever connected on was
Yeah.
the Copacabana scene in Goodfellas.
I don't know. I just heard that they could be expensive. I heard with the
It's not expensive. I mean,
I'm the actor.
I mean, we're all. I mean, everything's expensive when you're making.
Yeah,
films.
so might as
But I
well
mean,
make it the best.
might as well make
And
it
they
what
are
you
good
want
shots.
it
I'm
to
not
be,
saying
right?
it's just
Jonathan,
like
what about you, man? We
So-
talked a little bit about precognition, but
show off.
You
This
gave
is
the,
what
you gave
show
the
off.
log line for precognition. So talk about Sorry for the Inconvenience, the log line for that.
Okay, so Sorry for the Inconvenience is a 6-minute short. It's about a young gay man who is going to give some life-altering news to his distant father.
Okay.
So it's very brief, but essentially that's the one. It's a 4-minute short, I believe, and it's actually one that I shot at UTEP for intermediate production class with. And what's funny though is that was not the one that I was meant to direct or write. I actually wrote a previous one, which was called Always in My Heart, which was a little bit more personal to me. And Ramon was like, "Hey, we need another script. Can you give it to her and write a new one?" And I was like, "Sure."
That sounds like Ramon.
it was. So this one was kind of like
Shout out to Villa.
I mean, considering that it was a 1-page thing and it was done on the fly, I was like, okay, I'm kind of happy with the process, and I was happy with the way we shot it, because I mean, of course, it took a day, but I mean, I was happy to give a visual experience that was different and at least enhanced that same story that we've seen a million times. A distant father. And then to go on to my next film.
Shout out to Villa, by the way. I mean,
Yeah, now you got that in the bag.
he had a hand in some of our projects, especially when we were going to UTEP and stuff like that, in the sense that like we were making them for his or
You
other
taught me a
people's
thing or
classes.
two.
Yeah, but shout out to Villa on that regard.
And then
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
Entus Brazos.
So, En tus brazos esta noche, in your arms tonight. It's about a young maid who is contemplating her future after having an affair with her rich employer, who is also trying to comfort his wife, who is still recovering from being sexually assaulted a year ago. I know, I was like,
It's a
okay.
very
it's-
expensive novella film,
So
but I mean,
okay, that's not the way I would call it, because that was not the intention. That's just the way it
no,
kind of came out.
you're right.
But,
I was also
No, but you were inspired by the Three Amigos.
Yeah,
and,
so-
it's
So let
important
me give
to know.
some backstory to that one. So
Yeah.
that one was for my cinematic auteurs class. We were given the option for either writing a paper or taking the exam or doing a short film. I opted for the short film. And on the first day of class, I remember I literally thought of the concept for the story on that day, but it took me 4 or 5 months to actually finish that script. And by the time we actually finished, the class was already done. But I was so happy with how long it took and proud of it that
That's awesome.
I thought, you know what, screw it, we gotta film this, because I loved it. I was passionate about this story. I feel like we all kind of, because I didn't write it myself. Yeah, I wrote a lot, and a lot of it stayed the same. But everybody incorporated a lot of their own
Exactly.
opinions into it that
Sure.
helped expand it. Delo was one of them. He helped out with that.
The
He was-
producer on the film, and he
Yeah,
was
the muscle is what I called him.
Yeah,
But,
AC grips,
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah.
Not the nice glasses.
Yeah, get a grip, dude.
and about town.
The whole package.
So him, my assistant director Jason, shout out to him,
Yeah.
and he's a fantastic AD who knows how to keep me, like always pushing for more.
He
So
was
That's what I'm learning. That you need
so here's the thing too.
amazing producer.
We
I mean,
need sometimes we just
Jason
need
is-
someone to kind of push us for further storytelling, because
Yeah.
what we have is good, but it can always be enhanced better. And that was something I learned with this film so much from so many various people. It wasn't just my vision. Yeah, it was in a lot of ways, but everybody incorporated something that I didn't originally have.
that collaborative effort.
Yeah, that
Absolutely.
collaborative with as well with your DP.
Yes,
with-
Diego Davila, shout out to him. He's a fantastic DP. And also going back to what you guys were saying about having people that you already know. So the thing with him is I knew he could capture that style that I was looking for. I wanted to have a documentary style, Amores Perros, Y tu mamá también kind of style, where it's a little bit of Guillermo Navarro and is it Guillermo Prieto or Rodrigo Prieto who did Amores Perros?
Rodrigo.
Yeah, and him and of course Emmanuel Lubezki and Y tu mamá también. I wanted that handheld documentary style, and it has a washed out look.
Scorsese's DP now, by the way.
Hey,
Rodrigo
And,
Prieto.
that one's
that
actually
have to be included.
We're trying to listen to the movie.
and so I knew he could capture that, and we both had the same exact ideas about the way I wanted to shoot it. So I literally showed him the script. He loved it, and he told me, "Hey, this is the way I envisioned it." And I thought, "That's exactly what I wanted for this." And so we just clicked, and we were super fortunate with that film because we literally had no budget. The money that we had went to food and a couple of props and costumes, and we were super fortunate with the rest.
Welcome to indie filmmaking, my
Pat,
friend.
You have to have food.
one of the locations was Patty's house.
Yeah, Patty's house. So the main actress, Patty, Patricia Montes, shout out to her. She's a wonderful actress, and she was gracious enough to let us, use her space. And then we were also very fortunate to have another space to show the rich house, which was by a great friend of ours, Ruby Maldonado. Shout out to her. She's a wonderful singer and a great friend, and she helped collaborate with the lyrics for the song for the film. And so a lot of it ended up just kind of being blind luck, but very fortunate blessings that came in this because.
By the way, I wanted to, now that you've tapped
Filmmaking,
into the music a little bit, that was something that me and Sandra, my wife, were talking about, because Sandra is very much so got me into Mexican cinema a lot. She's has degrees in Spanish and has very much studied the literature and film of that side of things, and got me into like Y Tu Mamá También and stuff like that. And one of my favorite Mexican films, it's borderline.
Really cursi?
Well, that was fun too, but borderline like guilty pleasure, but not quite, is Marta Duele. And Mexican cinema of that era tended to have a song that was written for the film essentially, and very much targeted in that regard. I felt that, and if you see Marta Duele, it has a song called Marta Duele. Were you aiming for that just as an homage to Mexican cinema, to write a song directly named after the film?
So initially, when I was writing the script, I listened to a lot of different Mexican songs, and I listened to a lot of songs in Spanish because I was really inspired by the scene from Y Tu Mamá También, where they danced to Si No Te Hubiera Sido from Marco Antonio Solís, and I remember kind of thinking, I just want to have something like that, similar, that music video style, also similar to how they did Si Señor and Control Machete from Amores Perros. And essentially, I wrote it with, I visualized it literally, and I wrote it with, by listening to Maná's Labios Compartidos. I listened to that over and over for a long ass time. I listened to that so that way I could embed and visualize it the way I wanted. And when we shot it, that's literally the way we shot it. And what happened was I tested it out, and I actually do have a cut of this where it's just with that song, and I was so happy with it. And we tried to explore the option, and it was $1,000 for a year for the rights to that one. And to be honest, I was already going to have a composer, Enrique Ponce, who's a fantastic composer. Shout out to him. And I had showed him like some of the ideas I had for this music and what inspired me visually. So I trusted him as a composer though, so I thought, you know what, I'll let him do his thing. He's more experienced at this than me. And he ended up actually writing a score for that scene, and it was beautiful. And then Ruby added the lyrics later on when we decided, hey, let's have lyrics for this. And that's when.
That's what I only asked if it was on purpose, because I'm glad that's crazy that how it kind of came together. But I would have thought it was an actively open, direct,
from the
homage from the get-go of like, we should write a song. And
we had a lot of homages, but a lot of people didn't capture or didn't catch. Like one of my favorites that nobody has caught yet, and just because I'm gonna say it just out loud, that way I'll be like, hey, you didn't notice that before. But in one of the scenes, you can hear the background noise to where the character of Nano, he's sitting and watching TV, and you can hear like TV back in the background, and it's in Spanish, and it's actually the Shirley Temple film, The Little Princess, which Alfonso Cuarón remade in 1994.
I like those.
That was one of his first, but aside from Great Expectations, it was kind of one of his first.
Yeah, it was his first, I think, American
cinema.
I caught it. I used it.
So thank you.
We all
By the way, like before we move on or whatever, I just want to say,
I like those.
For Amores Perros soundtrack, Lucha de Gigantes is my favorite song of that sound. It's one of my favorite Mexican, rock songs to begin with. But it's so underrated in that soundtrack because everybody runs to Si Señor or whatever.
I
Lucha de Gigantes is my shit.
Yeah, and so what we were doing when we shot it, which was another fun thing to do, I wanted the main character, Saida, since she comes from a lower class background, we wanted it to be tight and claustrophobic, sort of similar to Amores Perros was shot, and to show the contrast. And with the rich family's house, Andres and Maribel, we shot that with a lot of wides and long takes to show, the space and capture that with similar to Y Tu Mamá También.
Yeah, it was definitely evident, man, on that regard. And it was definitely fun.
Just based off of the way you're talking about, I'm guessing out of all the ones you showed, this is your baby right now.
It was
the best process.
Honestly, it was the one I put my heart and soul into for the longest time, and I think I went above and beyond for it in a lot of ways, and I'm very happy with the way it turned out. And yeah, there's always gonna be something where you're like, I wish we had a budget, but at the same time, I don't think I would have changed much about it, to be honest. So much of it would have been on the aesthetic things in terms of lighting, stuff like that, just like maybe just some warmer lighting in certain areas or something like that, just to kind of show the similarities or the contrast. But everything else is perfect to me the way it was done because of the people I worked with and the casting crew, and I wouldn't change anything about them.
And your favorite director and/or film?
So you can kind of tell. Alejandro Iñárritu is my favorite director. Alfonso Cuarón is a close second. And my favorite film, this is probably going to be a little different.
Hit us with it.
12 Angry Men.
That's
Really?
right, I remember.
And I think, and I was trying to find a pattern because everybody is saying things about like, and so I kind of realized too that
judging
it's my
right
favorite. It's my favorite film. But if you look at a lot of my films, they're about people in these very complex situations and exploring the humanity. And so that's essentially what happens with my films.
We just talked
cool,
about on our other podcast. We talked about my favorite film recently, and it has Harold and Maude. And if you would think about me loving the art of cinematography, and you look at Harold and Maude, it doesn't seem like it fits. Like it's not like something
Nothing stands out.
Yeah, it's not that it's not visually striking as much as other films are,
Yeah.
but it's one of those films that I just keep coming back to because
You're emotionally invested in.
I'm emotionally invested. So it's okay for like that one not to connect because there's films that
Yeah,
got us into
absolutely,
films,
absolutely.
and then there's directors that we appreciate because they do something for us when it comes to that creative stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my favorite Iñárritu film is Amores Perros. It's my favorite, because I'm the most emotionally invested in it and it's the best experience. But if you were going to ask me what's his best looking film, I'd probably say either The Revenant or Birdman because they're the most beautifully aesthetically. But that's what those are two different
Chivo
things.
could shoot with his eyes closed, dude, and fucking
Probably
do
does.
something magical.
Brett Ratner said that it was his favorite film too, and we talked to him.
Yeah, well, cool. Name drop. Okay, so Francisco.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't care what order you go in. This is
Let's keep it down.
No. Carlos.
Yeah.
We don't. Get out of here. Can you give us a log line for each of your films?
Sure. So I screened, You Know What's Funny, which was a...
What's funny?
That's the name of it. That's funny, right? Boo. You Know What's Funny is... Boo! You know What's Funny was a 48-hour film that we did for the El Paso,
those are tough,
48-hour, 2-day film convention, I think it was called. And it's about two star-crossed comedians, as I call them, who love the art of comedy and very much are good at it and developing themselves as comedians, but because they're in love with each other, because they live with each other, they're in constant almost battle because you have to prefer one or the other, right, with the audience,
that's very
especially in
real.
such a local crowd. And when one does better than the other, what happens then? And that was the whole exploration. Mr. John Eric Castro was one of the leads for that film. Fantastic job there.
Let me just say,
You described him as how did you describe him? Your DiCaprio to your Scorsese?
Yeah.
He's my
I'm
De Niro.
older.
He's my De Niro.
Yeah,
That's
I'm older.
my Scorsese because also continuously working with like somebody like Damian who's worked in a couple of films of mine. I think Damian's a Leo. He's my De Niro. They kind of battle that out.
When I saw that, I was like, how did you guys do that?
No way, get out of here. That was in 48 hours.
Yeah, no, well, still, because I did it, and you guys asked me the day, what was the name of your film, and I remember now, it's called Endless Voices.
Endless Voices.
Yeah, and we didn't even do the credits, we did it, we like stayed up
And you
all
told me
night.
it was out of competition, right?
Yeah, it was
turned in a little late or
it was
something.
with the ones where, I guess, incomplete,
Which one was it?
Yeah.
I saw
It was
it.
the early screening.
Yeah, I saw that.
we were at that
Early
one
screening.
actually.
It was
though,
called Endless Voices.
No. What was it about?
Oh,
Yeah, which one? So
Yeah,
so this is one of the films we go back to, but it was...
See, he had more.
That
Liar.
one. And I've done the 2-day challenge twice, and the first time didn't work out. Second time, it was a painter who would kill people by putting them into their paintings.
I think I remember seeing that.
Yeah, something like that.
That was actually a cool concept.
The idea was cool. The execution was, but 2-day. I mean,
That's
yeah,
tough.
yeah.
Nobody's gonna judge
That's
a
why
2-day
I'm,
film
I
festival.
know, but that's what I'm saying.
Oh, I get
I
this
saw
a lot.
that and it was great. You guys did a good job. It hit me just as much as seeing. I told you La La Land, man. It was good. And congrats.
Appreciate
to
that.
you,
Yeah,
man.
man. That was a big year. That we did it. We accomplished a lot, thankfully, that year. And that
Those are little boot camps for me, dude. Because
we had the amazing crew that we had that year. That we still have. I mean, it seems to be a formula that works for. We've done three.
back to back.
We've done three. The one we did before that one was the Tram.
Winners.
We won the audience favorite for that, and then that year we won first place audience favorite and best use of line. Michael was my DP, and this is why I say on that set. He was grounding me, and
Really?
I was more head up in the clouds. We need to capture these moments. He's like, dude, you have 6 hours to this day or whatever we're shooting, So it was terrific. And by the way, we made a documentary of that. That's on our YouTube and stuff. Check it out of the making of that film, which was fun to explore. But thank you for that, man. Yeah, that was a terrific experience. And the La La Land moment, quote unquote, was directly an homage to it. Absolutely. The next thing we screened was the oddly enough the latest 48-hour we did, which is Just Passing Through. Essentially, it's just an exploration of a guy revisiting his memories, and visually, we wanted to present that in a very 3D form. What does it look like to go through the different doors of your mind and the different memories that explores? We did that for the Agbo 48-hour film competition, which was the Russo brothers. It's their company, and
What did you think of that one?
That was
That one was tougher to film.
It seemed like it was tougher to film. Like,
Yeah,
I just shot yet, and go ahead.
Oh, I'm just dreading how hot it must have been for you guys to shoot.
It was cold.
No,
It was
it
opposite.
was
Yeah.
It was cold and
Um,
windy.
That's perfect.
The,
then.
It was
Except for the
freezing
windy part.
windy.
No,
Because we were
because,
holding the door and it was blowing out.
See Michael heads like, no, dude.
You know what? I would prefer that because I mean, you know from experience, Michael, I do better with the cold than the sun.
I'm dude. I'm saying
No, but it was a terrific experience. You know, we were all vamped because it was the first thing we did coming back from the pandemic.
Yeah.
We shot it in May, and Head told me, I think literally Sunday, or he sent it in the exec groups and was like, "Hey, Agbo's doing this. What do you guys think?" And I was like, "I don't think it's time yet, dude. I think we gotta wait a little longer." But then he asked everybody from the crew, and everybody seemed to be like, "Well, we're down. We gotta get back on set." And I was like, "Well, if everybody's down, then cool. Then if everybody's
needed to get
confident
back on set.
and feel like safely we can get back to set, let's do it." And Head was supposed to direct, by the way. That was always the plan. He was going to direct the film. When we got the prompt, we kind of judged it on that front. Like, well, hey, I kind of, if I'm being honest, I was kind of like, hey, can I direct it?
and then he quit while he was ahead.
And gracefully, he was like, yeah, of course. And we brought in Delao to co-DP. They co-DP'd the film. And
first
the limitation there was, yeah, that was your first official kind of co-DP
Get him a
experience.
beat wet.
Yeah, man, you were
the,
good too.
The challenge there was that for you know what's funny, it was an 8-minute. We had to turn in an 8-minute cut. The one I screened at the event was a director's cut, which was like I think 13 minutes. But for the Agbo thing, it was a 3-minute cut. We had to turn him in a 3-minute film, and that was the bigger challenge, I think. Which is why we opted to do it silent. I think that was the big thing. We'll just do a silent film. It'll cut out a ton of it, and yeah, that was just passing through. Yeah.
Just add to that, I was in it, but I was actually amazed at the editing. And you guys, I don't know much about.
That's
and all that.
Austin and Michael.
I'll make
the effects.
a quick note. I remember every time I'd go and talk to you while we were filming and I was moving camera and stuff like
You were
that.
like-
You were like, I don't know how this is gonna come together.
Which you
And
always
you're
does,
usually
and I
like
love
that.
when I go to the premiere. I'm like, that's the big picture. I love it.
Yeah, that was terrific. We got a lot of great feedback from Agbo, and they were terrific to do that with.
Like, you're an actor. You're just looking at
The,
your
la-
lines.
the last film I screened was not a 48. We screened my newest film, which is A Town Square Tale. We
love
screened
the shots, dude.
a cut of it. It's not the final form that we screened there, but we wanted to get it ready. Francisco had reached out to me about the event, I don't know, a couple months beforehand, and I was like, well, I think we can get a cut ready in time. Spoke to Austin and Head and Jesse, who did the effects on the film, which are terrific.
Who was the actor?
Taylor
Taylor
Rodriguez, Taylor Lance Rodriguez, and Larissa Reyes were the
Shout out.
stars. They were terrific. We also had a bunch of extras. Jonathan was actually one of the extras in the film.
I was
if you
dreading
didn't
when I
catch
saw
him in
him. I was
there.
like, oh.
And then we also had Austin's parents, which Eddie and Gloria Young are terrific. In the,
Oh yeah.
I was
yeah.
slightly surprised that there was none of that music from the takes that he actually played. And I was like, so I was like,
We
what
wrote
is
the
this?
song. We wrote the song ahead of time. I told Eddie, the composer, Eddie, shout out, man. We listened to the last
Oh, yeah,
one recently.
dude.
Terrific score. But I spoke to Eddie about writing the song, writing the guitar instrumentation of the entire score that was going to carry 10-15 minutes throughout the film. Let's write the song, just the music, so that I can play it live on set. I wanted to play it live. I wanted us to play that live, which theoretically you didn't have to do. It could have just been any song and it was going to cover it. But I wanted Taylor as the actor to learn. He learned the song a few days ahead of time, and we could get into that mental space about it. And man, those two together, the chemistry between them was beautiful. They were terrific actors. Delao was the sole DP of this one. He wasn't co-DPing this time, and I think that was probably directly the craziest process, and the most rewarding process. I think too was just to get into the pre-production of storyboarding and shot listing. And by the way, the film is the log line, I guess you could say, is
That's one of my favorites.
absolutely. The log line of the picture is a musician who's left, he's left his hometown, comes back to revisit his old stomping grounds as a musician, and when he does, he's just sparking the memories of an old relationship that the town square really meant to him, hence A Town Square Tale. He just revisits all these moments as he walks through each of them. So when we shot Just Passing Through and we started developing this film, I said, well, let's do a trilogy. So we're getting ready to shoot the third installment in November, which is going to go into that same realm of silent picture, revisiting memories and relationship dynamics, and how everybody goes through that, you know. So
I love how it's literally like going into the memory, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's not just like, you know, flashback. You
Right.
know? It is essentially, but like you see him walking through and you have these nice, I thought so far, I know you guys said the transitions of the effects were still kind of
working
early on,
a
but
little bit of that.
it's a good start, man.
Yeah, and it's not even your first trilogy, so that's what's most impressive too. Because I mean, I'm just like, wow, I'm like, man, I'm like on my fourth or fifth film, and I'm just like, wow, you're already doing trilogies, and
Yeah,
so
this is
it's
my
impressive.
second trilogy. Yeah, the first one we did
Yeah, the styles.
was called, what did we call it? The Closure Trilogy.
I called it the Damian Trilogy.
The Damian Trilogy, yeah. The Damian and Valerie Corpus were part of it.
Unfinished Canvas is, well, still probably, I want to do a trilogy type thing. I
Cool.
wanted to do one about a drummer and,
cool.
a dancer, something like that.
Nice,
Yeah.
man. That'd be interesting
But
to explore.
I-
Yeah. No, it's in that
early
same
on,
vein,
you know,
man.
yeah.
I mean, I
Tell
really
story of
encourage you
artists.
to explore that side of things because I never planned for it, the last trilogy or this one, to be a trilogy, but it
Yeah,
That leads me to a question after Francisco. That leads me to a good question.
But that's the log line of the film, and just I did want to kind of talk about the visuals a little bit because that was probably the most rewarding thing, just from the storyboarding to the final shots that we got. I mean,
I think,
I was very happy with those visuals.
Well, I mean, it was our first time working as you the director, me the DP, and,
Right.
and kind of like seeing each other's styles. And I mean, really, you know, when I read your script and kind of went through it, I could already kind of feel what you were going for, and
Right.
I think your style very much falls into trying to find this like La La Land, this beauty in the environment and this
Right.
beauty in the space, and the best way to facilitate that was keeping everything very wide, really
Right.
absorbing the town square.
Yeah.
And I think that all just was
I think we're going back to Lala. I want to say though that it
Calm
feels
down.
natural though. It feels natural. It doesn't feel like you're borrowing.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
and I'm not
you have
hiding
to-
that too, by the way.
Yeah.
I've never hid the fact that La La Land is by
Yeah,
definition
yeah.
my second favorite film of all time, and it impacted my work from the moment I saw it. I mean, I'm working on a musical right now, you know, so the script is finished for 2 musicals that I'm getting ready to shoot. So, I mean, it's directly impacted me, and Damien Chazelle's a director. I mean, I hope when you do your drummer sequence,
Oh,
that
man,
Whiplash
yeah.
is going to be your Bible to a certain degree, right? But La La Land very much impacted me from the aesthetics, the looks, the color, to the homage of classic cinema, to the beauty of and dynamic of the relationship. That's huge to me.
and when I like say La La Land as being that kind of main reference, I mean that you've stated this multiple times that what La La Land did for LA, you wanted to do for El Paso.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like your
Good
next
pitch.
films, kind of going forward, are really doing that.
Yeah,
they're really
I hope
capturing
so.
the
I
kind of
mean,
like
You're kind of the
space
same way
of El
too.
Paso.
You're kind of the same way with the way I was with Enthus Brazos, where it wasn't like a knockoff or anything like that. It was
Right.
a tribute stylistically, but you still had your own unique story to it.
Yeah,
And so
yeah. I mean,
that's what
that's
I was
same,
trying to say.
and I mean, I pride myself in being one of the only guys that still shoots 2-3-5-1 because it's. I mean, this is something DPs and editors like. We have to have the guides on the camera because if not, it's we have to reframe and post. And I was really adamant about we're shooting in 2-3-5. I haven't shot a film in 69 or since probably just passing through. And even that one I turned it to 2-3-5-1 for the final export. So I love the wider the aspect ratio to me is just much more cinematic, and La La Land presented that in a very beautiful way for me because they presented it in CinemaScope, and it was exactly that type of wide environment. So I very much love that style of cinema and paying homage to these classic films that did that all the time. And I mean, most musicals in the 40s, 50s, and 60s were shot in CinemaScope, you know, so that 2-3-5-1 is very important to me to show this wide environment for sure, especially in El Paso, man. We have so much beauty here, and everybody's getting ready to leave to LA, and that's not the point. The point
Yeah.
is
Oh,
to,
no.
you know,
Working on this project, I
Yeah.
mean, there was something really nice about seeing the plaza through the camera.
Right.
And I mean, you know, the way we captured it is this way that kind of, like, I even started seeing where the lights just lended itself to having this kind of beautiful moments where all the memories were, we didn't really have to add a whole lot of extra. It was just like how the environment wants to light it.
And
You know,
that's-
the corner lit the kiss, the, what is it called?
yeah, the first kiss moment. Yeah. No, and I wanted it that way. That's the way I see San Jacinto Plaza and a lot of these. Remember, we shot Poster Girl there And I remember capturing a lot of that beauty, especially during the winter, was one of my favorite things I've worked on with Towers, is just capturing the beauty of those moments and a moment in time, right? So it's easy. I think I said this in the event. You point a camera at it, and it's already there. And just to in the coloring process, by the way, we're able to bump a lot of that up just beautifully. Head did all the coloring for the film, and we're still finalizing the color for the next cut. But Head was, I mean, I was so convinced that, oh man, when we color this, it's gonna. And Head was like, yeah, we just gotta do that. Like these very minor bump ups in color, it was already there in cameras.
Now, before we move on to the next director, we would ask you what your favorite director and film is. But Castro, I want you to ask me.
What's your favorite director?
Oh, okay, it's Scorsese. Go on, next question.
Francisco,
Scorsese.
you're the closer. You're
It's
the
Scorsese and it's Hugo, right?
No. Well, favorite film of his.
yeah.
Favorite of all
That's
time?
what we've been asking?
No, favorite of all
favorite
time.
film.
No. So favorite. he's
Yeah,
my
I
favorite.
kinda wanna know that.
Martin Scorsese is my favorite director of all time, but my favorite film of all time is Good Will Hunting.
Oh, yeah.
I like how we both have different favorite films, but we have a favorite director.
Yeah,
Which
sure,
one was
absolutely.
which one was yours?
12 Angry Men is my favorite, and Iñárritu is my favorite.
Yeah,
director.
no, that's everybody's always puzzled, and the reason he brings up Hugo is because Hugo is my favorite of his. It's my favorite film. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
All right, Francisco, can you please tell us the log line for your films?
No.
Damn
So
it.
what's the next
You're
question?
in a big studio.
right,
lining
Matthew,
up
We
the
showed
shot.
two pictures. Show two
Guy
pictures
makes
after
two fancy pictures.
So I showed two films. The first one's Bunny King. Bunny King basically is about a girl who tells the stories of Alice in Wonderland to her little brother as he's struggling with a disease, and she kind of pitches him on this idea of the character of the Bunny King, and so he completely buys into it. He says that once he passes, he's gonna become the Bunny King, and the rest of the story we kind of like jump after he passed away. And she goes to group therapy, and all the characters in the group therapy are the characters of Alice in Wonderland. And so it's just kind of like a back and forth between those two stories, culminating in her kind of like realizing that she can cope with her loss that way. That's basically kind of like just like the whole crux of the story.
Gotta watch it.
That story I actually wrote as an exercise of how to cope with loss. I wrote it right after my grandma passed. And I just wrote the script, honestly, just to write it. I didn't think I was gonna shoot it. I was just kind of
beautifully
like,
dedicated to your grandma at the end of the film.
yeah, at the end is dedicated to her. To me, like that, like I said, like that was just gonna be an exercise of writing. And it's funny because Carlos and I used to give each other shit because he makes talkies and I make visual films, and we kind of switch places where all the films that he showed this time were silent films. Well, not the first one it wasn't, but the last two were. And I completely fell in love with writing dialogue and writing giant monologues, and I had like a lot of.
You're welcome.
Oh yeah. It's absolutely about
High five.
I think it was clearly me. Duh.
Yeah, of course. Guys. My grandma died. I was kidding.
But in all seriousness, like we've been friends for quite some time. You know, like over 4 or 5 years now, and for the beginning of our friendship, it was very much giving each other scripts and you know, seeing what we liked about them and what we disliked, and we're very crucial. We're still very hard on like, you need to figure this out. But I think that was a big thing. Was like, you need to explore more talking. I need to explore more visual stuff.
And like I
and
said, I think I
naturally.
mentioned before, like one of my biggest focuses as I wanted to grow as a director was the writing side. So.
And how long did you take to film that one? It seems like it took you a while.
Bunny?
Well,
It's
the thing
very
is,
well filmed.
with pandemic and everything, the post-production took forever. But filming, it wasn't that much. Like, I wrote it in about 6 months, and then I filmed it in 2 weeks.
You
was
filmed
like
it in 2
2 week.
weeks?
Yeah, it was a 2-week production.
Was it like back-to-back
Yeah,
days,
like,
or was it kind of
was
like
it that, like,
30
Yeah,
spread
because
out
it took us
over-
2 months to do.
Was it like
the process.
rehearsals and everything?
Yeah. Well, it was like 10 days of production. So like it was within those 2 weeks we filmed for 10 days. It's a lot of locations. So it's like I think it's 12 locations, I believe.
Yeah.
So the film jumps around, and there's a lot of there's a pretty big cast, especially for a short film. So the production side of thing was very tough, but I was very lucky because I always credit Bunny King as the best film school that I've ever gone to, because it literally taught me how to make a movie. It taught me how to trust my actors. Taught me how
Don't
to-
worry, Jay. He had a couple before
Here's the
those
thing,
that he
too,
doesn't
though.
want to talk
Yeah,
about.
You may say it's your film school, but we've seen the potential way before that, dude. And here's the thing too, and I have to ask this because it's been driving me nuts. Where did you guys shoot the red grass, and how did you guys do that? Because
Oh.
I'm curious to know how you got that clean
Yes.
cut look, and I don't
That-
care if that's turf or anything like that.
That's
fantastic.
what's the park right here on Piedras?
I think I know which one you're talking about. It's the one up here, right?
Is Lincoln Park?
Lincoln
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
Or
the
Memorial?
Memorial.
Memorial's
Memorial's
closer,
back here, right? By
closer to
District?
Northeast. No?
Yeah.
Closer to the Northeast.
Shout out to Parks and
No,
Rec.
Lincoln is the one with all the murals. And
I know his album.
Okay, no, then it's Memorial.
It's Memorial,
Park.
yeah, that
So
makes
that's just Memorial Park, and it's actually funny because the red grass we shot 3 months after we had wrapped the movie. I was in the editing, and it was like. It was one of those weird nights where I'm editing like until like 4 in the morning, and I'm looking at my cut and I'm thinking like, dude, we need to cut to Wonderland, but I don't know what to do. So I called the actress at 4 in the morning, and I was like, hey, I'm picking you up in 1 hour, and I'm just trust me, can you please? And then she was like, yeah, like I'll be ready. So I went up, I picked her up, we went to the park, and I'm just filming. I was just like, look, I'm gonna make this work, I promise. But right now you're in Wonderland. And I pitched her, and we got into it, and like we filmed for like a good 3-4 hours. And it's funny because like in the movie it's just what, like 5 seconds, right?
Hey, that's all you needed.
Imagine,
Exactly,
wait.
exactly.
Imagine a guy calls you up and says, "You're gonna come me to Wonderland at 4 in the morning," and then he's just filming you with a camera, and you're like, "What
Hey,
do
that's
I
not
do?
so-
You're in Wonderland."
Hey,
It's
that's-
the floor, you
Hey,
know?
that's Jason's Wonderland too.
Well,
Except a different kind.
I give her credit because she committed to the character, even though the pitch is very difficult.
Oh, yeah.
But
Two questions.
yes, go ahead.
What drug? How much?
Adderall.
How much?
Mushrooms, all
It's
of
important to note. No,
That's
but
the
it is
question.
important to note. I think. I mean, for a very grounded story, there was a good chunk of special effects, and that being one of them
Yes,
is
yes.
through power windows. I'm assuming is how you colored the red
I
grass and
love,
stuff like
I mean,
that.
my whole thing is fantastical realism, and I like telling stories that are completely grounded, but the cinematic visual language of it is what's actually the fantastical side, right? Like all the
Yeah.
transitions and all of that. And I needed to kind of like have the climax of the movie become completely fantastical for even a second. And that's why like the instinct was, okay, let's have her be in Wonderland.
Sure.
And so, and actually the effect, I'm a visual effect artist as well, and the effect is the easiest thing in the world. You
Yeah,
literally
right,
just grab the green screen and you put it, and then you put a red background, and it just paints itself.
Very clean
You don't
plates,
really have to do anything.
Just imagine what him and Jesse would do in a film together, as far as like visual
Forget
effects.
about it, yeah.
They're gonna do like 2 features.
Imagine what all you guys together.
Yeah.
So
I see a lot of fascination with that. 'Cause-
There's too much talent at this
Here's the thing too, though. Also, I was saying this since you said fantastical realism. I did Iñárritu and Cuarón in my film. I felt like your film was Del Toro in a lot of ways.
a lot of people say that, and he's definitely a huge inspiration for me. That
Yeah.
I love the Three Amigos,
Especially
but Del Toro is
the Wonderland stuff, but also a little bit of Bridge to Terabithia for me too.
Very, very funny how like even just based off those, I mean, the clear indication is that they inspire us as filmmakers because they're Mexican American Mexican filmmakers, and you know, we obviously as Mexican Americans we identify with that, but. Iñárritu's your favorite, Cuarón's mine, and Del Toro's yours, and it shows in the style
it
of
jumps because I will say it's Cuarón and Del Toro are tied, but it's I don't know. I love all of them.
Yeah,
It's
no,
really
I
hard.
I think we all just have our personal preferences.
No, but I mean, it's just.
Well, no, it's not my favorite director. It's my favorite of the Three Amigos.
Yeah, but the,
yeah.
the reflection of that is what I mean. Is like through Del Toro's
Right,
work,
it's a
the
little bit
visual,
closer to that. I was gonna say it's funny because I've been going on this like rants lately with Luis, who is my creative partner, about how like to us language is limited, and so like telling a story with just people talking seems very like there's a ceiling to it.
And that's like the flip for you.
That's the
if you-
flip for me.
Yeah.
I think through I think dialogue is like Sorkin says, like it's music.
Well,
It's-
and the idea of it is
And music
you can
is infinite,
tell
you know,
you can
so-
tell a story completely visually, you can tell a story completely in language,
Yeah.
and so finding the right mix for your story.
Yeah.
Well, I've been
Exactly.
preaching recently the importance of visual literacy, and I think it was the biggest thing I preached to you when we were getting ready to make this film. And whoever you're working with on whatever it is, whether it's a quote unquote talkie or it's a silent film, visual literacy.
And that's something that
so important.
I mean, it's visual literacy, but like taken to a different extent because okay, for example, like the film is bilingual. There's most of the scenes are in Spanish, but all the group meetings are in English. And her dad tries to talk to her in English once the kid has passed away. And so there was like a very specific reasoning behind like the dad just wants to leave Spanish behind because to him Spanish is the way he feels. He doesn't want to feel, so now he's thinking. He thinks in English. And so like all these things are things that I kind of carry with me. Obviously, when you watch the film, you don't go like, oh, you know why that that's speaking English because blah blah blah. Like no, it's just something that you
I
kind of
also
like.
identified with like the Santi was, you only hear him talking Spanish.
Right.
You know, it's
Right.
it was a
So he just wants to
representation
leave
of
that, right?
Yeah, I
and
don't know
also-
if it was intentional, but I love how you use kind of like the language barrier as also a way of like having this difficulty communicating like grief
Right.
and the challenges of kind of like communicating all those feelings you go through.
I got that.
Yeah, essentially, I found it as a way of showing the isolation and sense of loneliness that she has.
Exactly.
And
That's almost like
something-
That's the
layered.
point, right? Is to,
She obviously struggling with sharing her story.
no, I mean
and-
like interpreting. Everybody seems to interpret it on different.
that's just how layered it
on
is,
the same
that's how fancy- that's the
playing
fantastic
fields,
is.
but differently within our each
Yeah.
interpretation.
But I was saying she obviously is like struggling with telling her story in English, and at the end she does have like that whole monologue where she thinks
Yeah.
you think that she's sharing her pain, but the real sharing her pain comes until the end when she finally breaks with her dad in Spanish, and so like and he then breaks and turns to Spanish for the last time. So like there's like all these things that I try to do with language and I try to make it make sense for me, but my visuals I carry them with me. Like I don't know how to tell a story.
Yeah.
No,
without the
it
visuals.
definitely wasn't like compromising one side to get the other. This was
Right.
definitely the mix of you already have a really good handle on the visual literacy of things.
Yeah.
Now let's see where you can kind of carry that to
Well, and
dialogue.
it's
Again,
I mean, like,
we need to see what you can do with dialogue.
That's the thing.
That's a
No,
different
but
conversation.
that's what I love about like Bunny King specifically is that
Stay
it
tuned.
took a much different approach to something that I did in my early films for sure, but something I really want to explore again, which is storytelling through voiceover, and you know I haven't touched that since probably my first two films. You know,
Yeah.
it's
And it's funny because I used to be super resistant against
yeah.
voiceover.
I remember when I
told
did
you,
mine, you were like,
I kept telling Carlos like that's a lazy writing, blah blah blah. And the truth is like, well, no, it's just another instrument that you
Yeah.
can play
and
in
that's what I
your
would tell you.
orchestra.
It's just another tool, and you either shoot to shoot it.
There's a great theory about screenwriting and about dialogue writing is that when you write dialogue and they speak, you eliminate every other possibility of other people interpreting it and for the audience. And so by having a visual,
I don't know that I believe that.
I know, but it kind of adds to some of the questions of where you kind of blur that line and where you kind of have the questions be open to interpretation. And look at all of us, we're talking about the different layers from and the interpretation just from the Bunny King, because we all connected with it just in different layers.
Right.
And that's what I think essentially makes it so powerful.
I'd like to kind of jump forward. Can
Yes.
you now go into synopsis for the other film you showed?
for Top Hat. So Top Hat, that was a very strange one to show because Top Hat, it's actually a pilot for something that we're pitching as a series. And so what I did is I tried to shoot the most complete scene and almost make it into a short film. So that's what we shot. That's what we were showing at the festival. And it's funny because like I really relate to what you were saying of like to you the painter short is your most personal, so you understood like, oh, this is kind of like what's closer to me. And I always credit that until Bunny King I hadn't made a personal film. I'm because of how easy visuals come to me, I felt like I was making like magic tricks and tricking people into believing that I was this great filmmaker when all I was doing is I was kind of like showing you great visuals and cool stories that sounded cool. But until I made Bunny King, everything was so personal for me. Like and then moving forward in Top Hat, I wrote 17 scripts during the pandemic, and all of them were good. I would make them sure, but none of them really like told me like, hey, you know what, like in a pandemic go out and make this.
Right.
And then I kind of like stumbled into Top Hat because of things that I was going through in my personal life, and that's when I knew like, okay, this is clearly the next project. How do we do this? Because I mean, as my logline, I guess, or my actually, I'm gonna tell you what how my actor pitches it to people. He says that it's Fight Club in the Victorian era, and and basically it's a woman who struggles with mental health, and she kind of projects this person who through the whole thing you don't realize is not a person, is all a fragment of her imagination, and how she struggles and in the fight against that person, right? This is all in the Victorian era, and that's kind of like how I'm obsessed with that aesthetic, and I think it has, well, it's difficult to kind of like sell it on the one scene that I showed, but on the series, it's very important that it's in that.
But,
that
you
time.
know,
They're gonna be like, that's a budget.
Like, what a challenge to do like a period piece. I mean, you know,
Exactly.
that's always like whenever I see any film now, and you know, it's a period piece. Even things like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and you see all the background and everything like
Right.
that. There's a way to make it right, and usually that way is very difficult because you need to collect all the little pieces. So that way
Just a little like not to that. We went to LA for our anniversary, and for our anniversary dinner, we went to Musso and Frank's, which is where they shot the restaurant scenes for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh wow!
And while we were there, we were talking to the waiters and stuff, and I was telling Austin, like, the waiter was super casually like, oh yeah, so this place has been there since 1919, so. Oh, so that table was Charlie Chaplin's, that was Marilyn Monroe's, this one's Jack Nicholson's, that's Al Pacino's over there. So he was telling us all these stories, and somebody near our table was like, hey, so what about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and how they filmed that? He says, well, the restaurant closes on Mondays, so we shoot anything that somebody's going to shoot something, we shoot it on Mondays. So Tarantino shot, closed the restaurant for like 2 days. But outside, Hollywood Boulevard was closed for 2 weeks. The whole boulevard was closed for 2 weeks, just to give you some idea of just how much they really had to change. Some of those storefronts, the facades, I mean,
the
to really
cinematography
put it
for
down
the
to the
driving
period
scenes.
piece of that.
I was gonna say though, and obviously it's a huge challenge to do anything like that. But once you're making films at a certain level, it's not that different. And the production that
it's
goes
the resources
into,
thing.
it's but at the same time, like, I just did something in the Victorian era which seems to be like this insane Herculean task, but it wasn't that. Like it takes work, and it takes figuring out like who can you talk to, who might have access to certain things.
It's another part of the filmmaking process because that's the part that I think we're again.
As indie filmmakers, you don't want to put yourself in.
As
a
indie
situation.
filmmakers, it's this mentality of like start with what you have. You know, if I just got my friends and the parking lot at what is it called, the fountains, and we can make a really cool scene there, then that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna grab our camera and we're gonna go out there. And then as you start developing these stories that have elements in the kind of like the visuals, the costume, the special effects, and you put energy into those, then it kind of takes you to this new level of it. I mean, we saw that.
That's the hope. I mean, that's the hope, right? As filmmakers, we were just having this conversation a few hours ago, where you hope that you're doing next level things, period. So if that's the quote unquote challenge of like, well, I'm going to do a period piece,
But it wasn't though.
Well, that's what
No,
I
I
mean.
just
But
meant
that's what I mean is that you're knowing I'm going to rent an Airbnb and shoot in this one location for this particular thing. We have costumes here. We have these amazing actors that know how to play off this thing. You already know the kind of resources you have, but at the same time, you knew that was going to be your next level thing. You know,
Right.
whether it was going to be through aesthetic or through dialogue.
Like, here's the thing, like when I wrote the script, to be honest, like I wasn't thinking like, oh, I'm making something in the Victorian era, I don't know how to do this. But that became very apparent once I took it to my producers. And my producers, like, they were mad. Like when I showed it to my producers, they literally told me like, you can go fuck yourself, you don't have the budget to do this. But then I told them, I just asked them, I was like, give me 2 weeks to try to see if I can kind of like talk to people and see
I
if I can
told you
find
this when you
resources.
pitched it to me originally. I was like, it's set in Philadelphia for one, so
Yeah.
anything that you're going to shoot exteriorly, you kind of have to hedge your bets and shoot interior for the one scene. But that was when we were talking about the big
About the
picture.
big pilot.
The
The one
one
scene is all
scene
indoors.
is all indoors.
And-
And when we're doing, I think it's interesting that we're in that place in our careers, quote unquote, right? Is that when we're doing Town Square Town, I've openly told everybody, producers, everybody involved, like, this is just to shake the rust off. This whole trilogy is just going to be to shake the rust off.
It really was just to kind of
Yeah,
like,
let's get back
let's
into the
just
flow of
go.
things.
We'll do it a weekend.
Yeah.
There's no talking and all
Shut
that.
the
And then
rust
it's
off.
just like it became.
And
this
it became much more important to me in that regard, and I took it a lot more seriously, and got people like, by the way, shout out to Robert Robles and Francis. She was my script supervisor. Robert was my first AD. Jason was my second AD on that set, UPM, and they really made that set happen. But what I'm trying to say with that note is, I was very much on the like, well, it sounds challenging, and everybody was looking at me like, why do you have such a big crew? We're gonna get permits for all of downtown. We're gonna do this. It's your biggest set, and I was like, well, it's not how I'm seeing it. You know, it wasn't until we were on set that I was like, oh, that's right.
There's a difference between the challenges, and you guys, feel free to jump in if you feel differently. But I feel like there's a difference between the challenges of I've never made a movie before. Let's make the first one and jumping into that and kind of going through like learning everything, and then the challenges of I've done a few of these now. The next one is more like how are we going to tell this next story? You know?
I heard a thing recently, and we could probably move on to the next topic after this, but or however. But I heard this thing recently where artists are very insecure about their art because they think that it's coming. They think that that's where it comes from, and when it comes from you, you don't feel proud of it because it comes from you. You're hoping that other people feels proud of it because they connect with it on some level or another. But when you finally make something that you're proud of, that you want to show to the world, it's a special feeling. And I think once you find that one film, every other film's a little easier. Every other film is like, oh, I think I know what I'm doing now. I think I know how to please myself as a filmmaker and how to please the audience I'm targeting this for.
Well, this is my final question before we piggyback, to yours and finish it off. Just a curious question from an actor that's trying to get into writing. And I've heard this from different writers and directors. People start in different places in the script. Mm-hmm. Like I heard John Irving, this famous writer, says that he can't write the script without the title. And then there's another one that said, I think it was Paul Schrader, Martin Scorsese's
Taxi driver.
Yeah, he says, you can't write a novel or a script until you know the last line. I'm kind of in that boat.
Wow.
Where are you guys at? Do you guys start in the middle, a character, or do you got to know the ending?
That's interesting.
You know, right now I kind of have a definite answer for you because I think I'm on the same boat. I'm going into this whole script writing, trying to master that. Well,
Exactly.
You could, I mean, I say master, but I want to get to a point where it's actually decent.
Oh, master!
Well,
master.
with the films that you did do, I mean, you did it visually, but I mean, even visually, you have to come up with the storyboard and all that. Was there a moment that you saw, like, that's going to be the kind of, like, poster picture of, like, what it was?
For sure, storyboards, I can actually see how it's going to look before I start.
That's my first shot. That's my last shot for sure.
Yeah,
This is how I want to open and close the film.
I could see it, and storyboards just help me show people how it's gonna look. With that being said, I did have like many type of scripts or some sort of
Slides.
Writing.
yeah. But to answer your question,
Don't have a clear.
I don't. I've been hearing that a lot of people know how the movie's gonna end,
Yeah.
and they go into that.
Yeah.
That's tough right now. I mean, I can see how it's gonna end, but it's just the lead up to that. I think you just have to have a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
At least right now, it's
a
how I
really
feel.
kind of process.
Yeah.
Francisco, I'm sure say yours.
I think it depends on the project completely.
On different projects.
Bunny King I wrote completely chronologically, and it just kind of came to me organically, and then Top Hat.
And that doesn't scare you, like not knowing the ending. Like I'm writing, this is good, but I don't have an ending.
I didn't have an end goal to it. I was just kind of like I said, it was just an exercise of coping. I knew I wanted to find my own answers as I was writing, so it was. I feel like that's why I wrote it that way.
And that's how it was able to come across organically. I think.
Yeah, I think maybe that's why. It's almost like I was going through like my own psychoanalysis of how I was feeling while writing.
And the way you can see it is like, I mean, yeah, it has an ending because it's a film, but like you can actually keep the story going if you wanted to.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like we're very
Mm-hmm.
much in the notion of like stand up comics and stuff like that, and to me, a film isn't a punchline, right? Like the ending, I could care less about the ending. I care about the journey.
You're one of those developing characters, guys. But to me, it's like I have to know the ending and if it's worth. Everybody goes to the theater and sees it and goes, "That's the ending." That's where I start. I'm like, okay. The ending has to get me.
That's because you and your Shyamalan twists get you with that. But if I'm answering the question, to me it really genuinely is about the journey, and every script is different. I'll have an idea where just a line, like the line one line of the film sparks the script for me. I'll have an idea where like more recently I have been going into writing with like I know the beginning and I know the ending. More recently, I genuinely have. But when I'm writing a short, it's easier for me to go into that process. When I'm writing a feature, it doesn't scare me, but it defeats. It kind of takes away the exciting notion of discovering that part in the end.
I never that.
It takes away the excitement for me a little bit of like, well,
scary, but yeah.
And I'll have 3, 4, 5, 6 endings in my head, but once I get to that last act, that last scene, where I'm like, okay. This is what has all of this taught me? What is this journey that's picking me up?
That's gold.
That's me. I mean, it changes every time. It changes every time.
I'm dabbling kind of into that writing sphere, and then, the scripts that hopefully I can produce later on. I noticed that like with you, when it was just like an exercise, and you're just kind of like, my exercise obviously wasn't as important as yours. It was just more like trying to get back into the process of writing or just dabble in that, it started with the visual of what I wanted to see, and then I kind of found my ending.
Top Hat, the first thing that I thought of was the visual of her singing in the fireplace.
Yeah.
And
That's
once I had that visual,
Then
I
that's where it
figured
kinda-
like, well, how do I get there?
Yeah.
And then I came up with the idea of the twist, and then literally from there, the whole script opened up for me.
found
Like it just depends on that, like I said, and I was gonna say, for example, like in Top Hat is definitely a more personal thing. About a connection to someone that you think you love, but then it turns out, well, it's actually how do you fight yourself, right? The whole idea of it is that you're fighting your ego. And as a director, that's literally what you're doing at all times.
On a
It's,
day-to-day basis.
it's very easy to hear yourself speak, but do you want to like listen to what others have to say? The idea is if I allow my actors to speak for me and I trust them fully, then they can do something actually that matters. And for example, like in the case of Top Hat, I was working with Julian Cabot and Valerie Corpus, who Valerie is one of those people that now I'm very protective of because I think that there's a weird thing that happens in filmmaking where people cast people that they don't know look like them in the city that they're from. So for example, like Valerie is a very white girl with ginger hair, pretty big blue eyes. There's not a lot of people that look like her in El Paso, and so people just cast her for the look.
Right.
And I'm starting to kind of be like, hey, read the scripts and be super selective. Don't just get excited because someone pitches you to be in a movie.
Right.
And you know, when you're first starting out, sure, do whatever comes to you because you have to, I guess. But as you grow as an artist, I say to her like, hey, look, hopefully Top Hat served as an audition for the local scene to say I belong in good stuff. And for me, that's something that I always try to preach to the actors that work with me is like, hey, obviously take whatever work speaks to you, but make sure that it does speak to you and you're not just kind of getting swayed by the idea of like, I'm gonna be in a movie, you know?
Jonathan,
before-
before we move on, just your writing process when you're, Castro asked about
Yeah,
how,
I was asking like everybody has their own different ways of where to start,
the story.
Yeah, like mine is I've started this writing process of starting with the end. That's where I feel comfortable. Are you a guy that starts with the character, a scene, or a certain
line,
I kind of started off with the foundation first, which is the idea, the core theme of the story. So that's essentially the way.
Theme, okay.
Yeah. So for my latest one, He Who Speaks, the theme is about asking religious questions about like, do things actually happen for a reason? And even though there's a lot of things in it that you would think, what the heck does this story have to do with the theme? But at the same time,
The theme's your anger.
yeah, well, it's also just exploring that question in a way where I can myself ask those questions that everybody else has, because we all like to explore those. We all have those questions that we always ask. How do things work? How does like life work? And we never get a concrete answer. And essentially, that's the way I started off. And I try to find everything layered. So I think, how could I tie this back in? So I look at it I think of it like a circle. So. So everything is literally. I know it sounds weird, but it's similar to Pedro Almodovar's style with how he did it with Live Flesh, with how how the theme is also about like wheels and going full circle, and it starts off and it's just like think about how layered that is, just that from that one concept and how it goes and explores that.
Okay.
And so a lot of that is my my inspiration, and it's part of my writing process, but usually it varies depending on the story. I don't really have like a legitimate first I start here, then this, because it happens in various places. Sometimes spontaneously, I think of ideas. Other times, I just need to write it out, and then, hey, I like the way I wrote this. I need to get it out more.
So
And I
nobody here started off with an ending?
I'm not a mystery writer.
Well, not always. Like I
it's
told you,
the story.
No.
I think what we got like
Well, I will say this. I've gotten very familiar with I hate outlining. I hate it. It takes away the excitement for me. Until I started writing features. When you write features, if you don't outline, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Oh, okay.
That's what I've experienced. When you're writing a feature, you almost need it.
yeah, that's true because short films we're just really telling moments.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but to at least the first
do
draft,
that.
even of a feature, I hate outlines.
No.
I really genuinely do.
So I want to jump into the last question to kind of tie all this up. Obviously, all of you guys, in your own regard, as directors growing here in El Paso, it shows just how much talent is here, and I
Yes.
mean how much potential, but in so many different directions. I'm
No
seeing
pun
that-
intended.
Like, it's crazy. But I want to ask each of you, you've made these films, you've showcased them, you all have your kind of babies. So what's either the next, not project, but what's the next challenge for yourself? You kind of dabble a little in screenwriting, but you can describe that more. What's the next big challenge for yourself as a director?
As a director, I already said, writing, I want to get better at that. But I think the next step is for me to actually, let go of this controlling ego that I have, and start, because I think once I do that, I can actually start growing, start talking to people, start working with people, because, for so long it was just me just doing these projects. Yeah, my friends helped, but I think a lot of it was also like me trying to, all right, let's do this.
All the weight was on your shoulders.
Were your friends as dedicated as you?
No, they were. Yeah, trust me, they're in it. Once they, I'll help out. It's not just helping out. They're,
They are
support.
the
And
That's
I'll say
good. That's good.
I talked to Carlos like before we started getting back into filming and all that, and it was I think after you came off of one of your last films, and
Just passing through.
yeah, well, no, it was before that
Was it
because
before that?
I remember he was so invested in kind of like not so much being controlling over all these different like aspects of the film, but he was very much invested in like, let me help out this aspect and that aspect and this aspect, and it's not control, but it's trying to put your hands in all these different places. And I think a lot of us were just trying to tell him like, no, you need to focus on directing, because that is the art form. That is you as an artist expressing yourself and what you got to focus on. It's like if you want to be a great painter, photographer, any medium, musician, you need to focus on that one niche.
And you
let
guys
yourself
already
improve,
have an advantage because
'Cause you
when you're the chairman of a company and the production company, you're the chairman and you're the executive producer. Your brain has to go to that. You don't want to leave everybody. If we're developing a film, I'm not going to let you die in it. I've been through it 20 plus times. Let me help you out. But as I've told Austin, especially during the pandemic when I was writing this, it was a very special piece of mine. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to produce. I don't like to produce. I don't want to produce. I'll be an executive producer where I'm needed. I love to stick my hand in there and help.
He just wants his name.
I just want to direct. I think I made a joke earlier with Francisco. Like, I want to be a producer the way Spielberg is a producer. Spielberg will come in with ambulance, say, attach my name to this. Here are my thoughts on the project. I'll see you later. I got to go direct my next film. I'm selfishly want to do that, So, with that regard, that's why I felt important. Like that's why I wanted to stick my hands into stuff. But
and I think you'll find it where once you allow yourself to just really go into your craft, be that directing, it really opens up this new world and possibility. And that's what I think.
Surrounding yourself with the right people, the way you say, trusting people a little more. I mean, if I don't trust Austin as my producer, if I don't trust Salah as my DP or head or as a gaffer, if I don't trust them, I'm not going to be able to focus fully on what I really need to do.
Also, we're not teaching you anything. I'm genuinely excited to see what kind of comes next from you because from all of you, there's just. We're seeing right now where you're at in your kind of creative careers, and it's not like anything's going backwards. Everything's just constantly improving. So
You're the new kid in the
it's
block.
interesting to see.
Jonathan,
Next big challenge for you as a director.
I mean, I think we all simultaneously want to grow with each project we do. We always have this mindset where we keep saying, okay, we got to keep getting bigger and better, and we got to keep doing different things. We got to keep progressing. And so, for me, it's also dabbling into areas that I'm not super familiar with, like visuals, for example. I mean, I know how to frame, and I'm good at that, but I'm not the best at lighting or cinematography. But I do want to make sure that I can handle the lighting and framing, because even though we did great with improvising on the spot for a lot of these scenes in Tres Brazos, I think that's something I kind of want to avoid in the future, where we have everything lined up as far as equipment and the way we're going to shoot things. It's not just going to be like it's improvised, because I've noticed that as a director, I'm better when it comes to improvising on the spot than sometimes I will direct something and it'll be like in the first 20 minutes people will tell me the dialogue. I'll just do the blocking like really fast, and people say, hey, that's pretty good, and so I'll be like, okay, cool. And so I mean, it's not to downplay it, but I feel like
but that was the process for that film.
Yeah.
And
So,
now your next one.
But no. So what happens though is what I think I'm trying to do too is also make sure I don't limit myself as a writer to just what's practical, because I think we embed it in our minds, just like everybody was saying before, that we got to because I think as filmmakers we're told from an early age, just go out and shoot, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for anyone. I think it just varies on person to person, but at the same time, when you do that, you kind of limit the possibilities for what you can do as a storyteller.
When you're in that indie mentality, it's kind of like, I'm not going to write a script about like this guy going to space and then moonwalking and all that. You're going to like write a script that you feel like...
Talking to me.
Yeah, well, like,
No,
no,
but
because
it's good.
Like, is
It's
there any way we can get a
true.
space
The
station?
right answer, I think, is you want to encourage early filmmakers to go do that, to go
Get it all out of
there,
your system.
go shoot. But we were just talking about the importance and the appreciation we've genuinely gained for pre-production, and how essential it genuinely
So
is.
tell me how I could get a stadium to film on. A soccer
you know
stadium
what?
to film.
We'll figure it
I
out.
need
got
one.
you, we got
No,
you.
but like I'll say that it's kind of funny. Like I was in a screenwriting class, and I remember the first time he said like, "Okay, you're gonna go out and you're gonna write a script," and I was kind of like, so like, does it have to be in El Paso, and does it have to be with this much? He's like, no, just write a story.
Let your imagination.
Yeah, that goes, that grows, and all that, and sometimes early on we limit ourselves. So yeah, making that leap.
It's important to know when to break the
Yeah.
glass.
Yeah,
You know,
like,
it's
I mean,
important to know when to break.
With
the
a lot
glass.
of my scripts too, I do think a lot about like local actors who I envision in certain roles, but I mean, I don't limit it to just that. You know, I essentially think, okay, I'm not saying I'm gonna shoot this in the future, but if I ever get the possibility for a budget and I get this, I would be cool to do this. So I still write it and just kind of get it out of my system. Like I wrote one, it's a stupid werewolf movie called Lone Wolf in the Lone Star State. Also, I'm a title Nazi, so I'm like, the titles just have to be like attention grabbers, because if they're not, then I'm just like, I can't stand when a movie.
There's your answer. Do the
Yeah,
Why?
That guy, Paul Schrader, he said that he needs to know the title.
he's an interesting.
That's actually the way I do it too. I actually write a lot of my scripts based on the title. So for Entus Brazos esta noche, I think I had a different title for it. I think I called it Viviendo sin tú, and that was initially what I titled it. But then I thought, you know what? I like the way it's layered with Entus Brazos esta noche, because it shows the layers of the storytelling, because it's about people comforting each other at their most delicate moments.
Sure.
Beautiful.
So Carlos, next big challenge. I mean, I know that with the series that you're kind of showing, you want to dabble a little more into like the silent kind of picture. Well, not silent, but you know, less dialogue heavy. But what's the next big challenge?
Yeah, no, definitely the current trilogy, you know, the last installment is just to kind of close that with a nice pretty bow of the silent films. But I think for me right now, the challenge that I want to explore is the overlap. When we look at our heroes, right, we know that the Spielbergs and the Scorseses are working on their current film and have their next 3 films planned out, and that's always been curious to me, because I've always been we have to work on the one thing and focus on the one thing, and lately I've been forced to have overlap. We've written so many things during the pandemic, and I wrote a feature during the pandemic among 4 or 5 other shorts, and the feature has become a pivotal piece of my career, and then it's a musical, and I'm very much in love with that story. But the whole goal now has been, okay, I'm shooting the next 3 shorts from here to December, and then January we start shooting the next short that's going to bridge into the feature, and you know, so it's been the overlap. It's been actually exciting. It hasn't been scary at all. I thought it was going to be scary to be like, I'm focusing on so many different projects at one time, but I think the challenge is just to find that balance.
That's
and
Hollywood, baby.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's a good prep, you know, to be able to do that.
And could I ask you, I mean, not to get too personal, but is this like full time? Do you do this, or
No.
do you have your? And that's the thing too. Like, I mean, being able to do this while having to do a real job, and I think people
Job,
forget.
personal life, everything.
Yeah, like,
takes
most,
place.
I
most
mean-
people don't know this. I'm homeless outside of it, you know.
No, but it is genuinely tough, man. I mean, I have a day job, and you work your 9 to 5.
You have a day wife. I mean,
I have a day
she's an all-time wife.
You know,
But-
I'm married and recently married, and it's one of those things that you go through as well. But it's
Being a person.
but I genuinely
Having a
see
life.
like this is my career, right? So if I'm doing that in the day and I'm doing this at night, I better be putting in the work at night. You know what I mean? So there's times where we stay up at meetings 2, 3, 4 in the morning, or editing sessions or whatever, because we're forced to do that. So the overlap. I mean, the goal ultimately is to not have to do that, right? To one day quit the day job and be able to do this full time. But you know, until we get there, you're either gonna give up halfway or you're gonna give it your all while you're in it, right? So think of it as a second job almost. You know? Yeah, I would say so. But yeah, that's definitely the next challenge for me, is just to be able to ride the waves of the overlap and be okay that none of the projects are suffering. I'm actually balancing it all out. It's been feeling good so far. Hopefully, I'm able to continue to do that.
And it's gonna be hit or miss on some.
Yeah.
So Francisco, the next big kind of step for you as a director, or the next big challenge that you're trying to take on yourself?
For me, it's making my first feature film. So basically, I felt ready after Bunny King. I was very lucky that a lot of the people that I consider mentors and that I admire, after seeing Bunny King, they kind of gave me whatever the green light is of like, hey, we think you're ready. you should do something on a longer form. You should maybe move on to feature films. And that was the original intent before I did Top Hat. I was writing a lot of features. But then Top Hat just kind of like organically happened. And like I said, that became then the obvious choice. But now after Top Hat is done, although we're still pitching it, and obviously because I'm in love with that story, I'm attaching myself to it. Like if it does get picked up, I will do that. But my biggest goal right now is to make a feature, to make something long form. I feel like from the I guess the caveat here is to say that you never stop learning, especially in our craft. There's always something that even when you think that you've mastered it, there's something else to learn. But having said that, I do feel like when it comes to how I craft my films and how they look and how they sound, they're already in a level where I think I should make my first feature. I do believe that I'm ready for that. Having said that also.
And that's crazy too, because I was telling him that, like, that's something, because I'm assuming that you think you're your biggest critic.
Oh yeah.
For you to say that means like, holy shit.
I mean, yeah, it definitely takes, and it's funny because when I first started, I was definitely like all ego. And so like when I first started like doing my films, I thought they were the greatest things ever until I saw them with other people in the room, and I was like dying of shame.
And now the second mom gets in the room, you can't.
Well, and that's the other thing. My mom is my biggest fan for some reason. She thinks that I'm like the greatest ever already.
I never show anything to my
That's where you got the ego.
Yeah, probably yes.
No,
yes. But the thing is, I surround myself with people that don't say yes to me. I surround myself with people that push back, people that clash with me in a healthy way, and also that I admire enough to actually listen to them. I admire them enough as artists that when they say no, it means something. Because like, I mean, to be honest, like if just some random dude says no to you, you just ignore it.
Right.
But when it's something that someone that you actually admire, you take that to heart. So for me, that machine, that system, that team that I kind of like build around me supports the idea that we are ready to make a feature. We're ready to do something in long form.
That's what's really impressive about, I guess, kind of like this showcase at the end of the day that we're kind of talking about and wrapping up, is just you're showing these works that you've all put in so much time and energy and kind of had your baby to other people who are doing the same thing, you know, and seeing this director's panel, all these different kind of ideas.
Yeah, it almost felt like a feedback session for what we're working on next, right? We're surrounding ourselves apart from us, by the way. I mean, we had guys like Anthony Salgado in the mix, guys, other directors from El Paso, that you regard their opinion on your work at the very least, and then you had the closest people, your collaborators, there to see it with other people in the room, and that was a big deal.
And just to like also answer this part of the question, because that would be my answer as a filmmaker, as a director, but like something else that I'm working on is this event. To me, making cultural events that promote the dialogue and promote art is incredibly important. Not just like Carlos is mentioning, like making a community of filmmakers, but also like, I mean, this particular event is about having artists there, having painters, having other people in other mediums. And to me, that sparks an interest, because I always give this example of like, if I tell someone that maybe is not into movies, let's go watch a movie, most likely they're gonna say no. But if I tell them like, hey, let's go watch a movie, and there's gonna be paintings, and there's gonna be a concert, and there's gonna be, most likely that's gonna like, something in there is gonna interest them enough to go, and then they get to open up and see a movie. And they see one of our movies and they go like, you know what, I'm glad that I came here because I was exposed to something that I wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise.
And by the way, just to kind of close this off as well, shout out to the artists that did the amazing pieces for our film.
Everyone.
Absolutely, yeah. Shout out to, I mean, in my particular case, we had Priscilla and Jacob, who did fantastic work. They did 2 pieces each for my films, and completely in love with the pieces. So shout out to you guys.
And if you enjoyed this conversation that we had with all the filmmakers that were here, this is on the Towercast.
Yeah, this is going to be on the Towercast for the filmmakers, but go to the EP Creatives podcast. Just check out their work as well. They're on Instagram. They can give you links to their podcast. They're going to be interviewing all the artists of the event, and that's going to be kind of
I also want to shout out my artists. So Sara, Fox, Ruben, and Carolina, Caco. They did incredible paintings.
Hey, quick question, real quick before we finish off. Nobody's ever thought about dabbling in TV?
No. Okay.
Wrap it up.
There we go.
Breaking Bad, did you play some TV?
I mean, I wouldn't mind it, but I mean, I'm not exactly like approaching it right
Yeah,
now?
I'm
Like,
not-
I mean,
That's
Quick
its own
question,
challenge,
just a
man.
quick question.
because think about it, because that's like a long goal in like a very in like
That's its own challenge, man.
Yeah.
It's like the way
That's 10
actors.
episodes
Well,
of
you'll
Money.
connect to this directly, right? The way actors are afraid of being typecast into one role for 6 years. No.
I mean,
I'm not afraid of that.
Yeah.
here's the,
But,
okay. Let me also give a shout out to the artists too for my expo. Also, shout out to Christian Yokomoto, Kate. She did. You guys both did wonderful jobs. And Tanya.
Yoko's a friend of the podcast, as you know.
Yeah, and Tanya, I know that you couldn't actually make it, due to unforeseen circumstances, but I still appreciate you, and still, trying to give the effort. And so, thank you for, still saying yes to this. And so, even though I thought it was ironic that the piece that was missing was for Sorry for the Inconvenience, so I thought that was so it worked out in a very ironic, poetic way.
Mr.
But-
Valens, any?
Oh yeah, shout out to Luis Gonzalez and Vanessa Clark. Like honestly, for them to come out and us connect and them make a piece for my film, I'm honored. And please go check them out.
Yeah. Also, just a shout out to Fox and the El Paso Creatives group and stuff like that. That not only did Fox let us use the space, and she was one of Francisco's artists, but also helped in some of that event
She's
coordinating
the
here today.
co-director of the event.
Co-directed the event, and this is definitely not the last time we have this event, as per conversations I've been having with Francisco.
Now, last thing to tie it up, not, we won't go into too much dialogue, but just each of you, really quickly, your advice for future filmmakers or people who want to get into filmmaking. I'm actually going to start this way, so Francisco.
Advice.
Straight up, man. No sugarcoating. Be real.
What you've learned thus
Don't
far.
do it. No, I was kidding.
Everybody says that.
You love your life, don't do it.
Everybody says that.
Unless
Don't do it.
unless you're a masochist and you like to torture yourself with like video editing.
Always.
I'll say, kill your ego early on. Learn from the artists that are surrounding you. Learn from everywhere, not just movies. Learn from philosophy, from science, from other art, and make something that matters to you. Like I feel like one of the through lines that I find in all of our work is that the movies that spoke to us, that we got held on, those were our babies. Find your babies and do those. So that's gonna differentiate you from other filmmakers.
Carlos.
Yeah, mine's always been the same. I don't think it's ever going to change. Make
Like
sure that
Martin
whatever.
Scorsese. Oh, okay.
Just watch Martin Scorsese. That's it. So you need. No, tell stories that you're completely and utterly in love with. That if you don't, you're gonna have a hard time, and you're probably gonna give up filmmaking somewhere along the line because you're not in love with it. So
That's right.
whatever story you choose, just make sure you're completely in love with it for forever. This is something you're forever gonna be in love with. So.
John.
So I would definitely say, stay humble and listen to the people around you. Surround yourself with people that want to help you, realize your vision. They will always help you out and enhance your stories and your vision because they're just as passionate about your story as you are. And if you don't surround yourself with those kinds of people, you're not going to have that same passion and drive, and it's never going to be matched. So always stay humble, listen to everyone around you. And I just got to say, just after listening to everybody, given everybody's different filmographies and styles, I thought to myself, we're so different in styles, but in a lot of ways, I listened to how we're so similar as filmmakers. We all have three constants. One is the personal perspective that we put into our stories, and also two, the passion, and that's what essentially drives filmmaking. It's passion because I always say that the door will always open to those who are persistent enough to keep knocking at the door for opportunity.
That's a good line.
Yeah, I'm gonna write that down. So the other thing is also take care of the people that you're with. Love them, and
Feed them.
they will love. Yes, always take care of them. They're your crew. They're there to help you out, and trust them in the process, and also know where to challenge them, but never in an unhealthy way. And also keep them wanting to come back for more, because if you do that, there's no limits to what we can do.
Wonderful. Good filmmaker right there.
Good J, sir.
Mr. Valens.
Oh, man, that's beef right there, man.
No, I think it's important to know that it's okay to feel like it's not going to work out.
Yes, yes.
It's okay to feel like sometimes you feel like an alien that you're dealing with this. You can't do it because of this, but sitting here today listening, I mean, that's all you have to do at the end of the day is listen. Sometimes you got to stop talking and
Yeah.
just listen, and that helps a lot. Like today, I can't tell you how much I've learned in just this day alone.
Likewise, man. Me too.
Compared
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
before. So yeah, it's okay to feel like it's not going to work out. It will. Just
Keep going.
have that passion.
You all taught me something different today, and I'm very grateful to have had this conversation with
Cool,
all of
man.
you.
That was a beautiful conversation. Just close it out, guys. keep watching the Towercast Network, all the updates we got. You can find us on Instagram. We're on every podcasting platform. Check out the Towercast. We're going to interview some exciting guests coming up. We can't quite say who yet, but we got some really cool guests. Not cooler than these guys, but you know what I mean. And we also have the Watchtower. We're going to be reviewing the Before trilogy next, so make sure and check that out. We just dropped the Harold and Maude episode, which is really cool.
Yep.
And look forward to connecting with all of these amazing filmmakers. And
In your city.
we'll tag them on Instagram and stuff like that, and make sure to collaborate, to get out there, find other filmmakers, artists that you can talk to and connect with, and keep watching film, keep collecting home media. I'm going to push that even on this podcast.
Wow, sure.
And thank you for all of your support. Thank you all who made it to the event and watched all of our films. We genuinely appreciate it.
And please go check out the El Paso Creative Podcast to see all the artists.
All the artists
because
and their
as
conversation.
much passion as was here is over
Is
there.
over there, yeah.
And yeah.
Thank you guys, man. Seriously, thank you for being
Yeah,
on the
for sure.
Towercast. We appreciate you guys. And I hope this is the last conversation on our podcast amongst these amazing filmmakers.
Can't
So
be.
thank you guys for tuning in to the Towercast podcast, the towering podcast for the towering filmmaker of El Paso and the world. Thank you. We'll see you guys next time.
Love
Take
you
care.
guys.